Bev's Video Kingdom is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
Popcorn's delicious.
I wanna be at Beverly's, bringing me home with my movies, just a blind ride, no reason why. I love this scene. It's got Zach and Brad, your favorite podcast. Let's start this thing.
Whoa. What's up, Bev's Video Kingdom?
Hi.
Oh, shit. Wait, what is that?
Who is that?
Oh, my gosh.
Who is that?
That right out of the gate. Ruined the surprise.
We have a special episode for you today. It's special in a few different ways.
Lots of ways.
No, one way.
We're gonna say first, it's just been a while since
Yeah,
we've done an episode. So there's one way.
It's been a while.
Second is that Zach's going to do a nondescript 90s.
It's been a while.
Stained?
version.
Yeah.
Aaron Carter?
I'm wearing my MAGA hat right
Carter.
now.
Aaron Lewis.
Aaron
Aaron
Carter.
Carter's much
Also
different.
Aaron Carter.
Rest in peace, Aaron Carter. My bad.
So one of our longest time listeners, my dad Keith Monroe, passed away. Sorry to Bev's Universe who's just hearing about this, because Keith has been a fixture of the discussion on Bev's over the years, and so he passed away about 2 months ago, and he was always, I think, our first listener in the morning, 4 a.m. listener. And he loved Bev's. He was a true home team guy. So anything that I did, he loved, no matter what.
The thing I loved about Keith is that he loved me, but hated every movie that I picked. And pretty much didn't agree with any of my opinions.
He absolutely
ever.
did. Yeah, he actually had a few notes. So I was gonna. You kind of jumped into that.
I'm sorry.
But like I was going through his phone, after he'd passed, and kind of looking through the notes, and he has a note that just says something like, "Tell Zach that pick is terrible." One of several notes about different movies and drafts. So Dad passed away, and we, he was not only a home teamer, but he also loved movies. He was a truly my love of movies I got from him, and we shared that, sort of the love of movies together, and even through the podcast, he was excited. He wanted to talk about the movies, wasn't afraid to tell us if we had a stupid movie on or we had a bad take, including me. So it was a great connection for my dad and I, in these most recent years. And he wanted us so badly to do American Graffiti. He asked me and urged me many times, and we scheduled it actually about a year ago, and then we didn't end up doing it. And he just, this was a movie, as you'll sort of find out, was so quintessential because it was from his era. Like, he lived the movie, but he also loved the movie. And so this one is in honor of my dad. We're going to do this episode, but also and very much a testament to how solid all my friends are. And being supportive, we have the full 5 character cast here.
The full 5.
The full 5. The full 5. So you heard Nick.
Hi, guys.
What's up, dude?
Hey. Honored to be
Nick the hairless Italian.
I heard.
Oh my God! Nick shaved his head.
Nicky shaved his head, and he looks
Makes
beautiful.
me so excited. He looks really good.
He looks really good. He always looks good.
He makes everything
He's
look
a beautiful
good.
man. It's like you can't go wrong.
from here on out. There we go.
So
I'm with you guys.
Brad's braids are the only thing hanging on here. Only hair hanging on.
Barely. By a thread.
Yeah. So we're here, and we got Scott, of course.
What's going on,
What's
guys?
up, Scott? And we've got Brad over there on the mixer.
Yes, sir.
Brad's
I'm back.
braids.
And I think the only reason that, we made sure that we all needed to be here is because, one, we wanted to throw a little toast and cheers to Keith Monroe.
I can't reach. I'm old.
It's a far reach.
to Keith.
And, just because I understand that, Keith, as our biggest fan, he sent us merch at times. Like there was things that he
there's
just
so
created
many
and sent us.
things.
Well, he's responsible for this tablecloth, right?
Yep, he did the tablecloth.
We've got an amazing tablecloth. And of course, one of our favorite moments, the Till Dawn, was always, that was a Keith Monroe.
That was a Keith
special.
Monroe original.
That's
yeah.
right.
He came up with that segment. And he had, I have probably 500 pens that say Bev's Video Kingdom with different iterations of us on it. I have a roll of packing tape that has the Bev's Video Kingdom logo on it. I have, I think, flashlights. I have all kind. I mean, my dad was one of the many things he became in his later years was a pen enthusiast, or any kind of paraphernalia you could print things on. So we have a lot of stuff that says.
So wait,
I think we were like,
were you just holding on to all of this until
Yeah.
like we got big, and then
Getting none of
you
it.
were just going to be selling it?
Stickers,
Just
yeah,
making
you were
it?
getting none of this. This is all. This was all black market Bev stuff I was going to sell.
but the best part about Keith's merch purchases is it was like episode 2, and we had all this merch. It was like,
Yeah, it's like we released the original episodes, and by the time we released like the fourth, it was like, oh yeah, well, you've got a full.
And that relates directly to we were all at Keith's service, and it's one of those special moments that somebody who we all knew very well, and it's like the way that the service was done, the things that people said about Keith, it was like an uplifting experience because it basically was like a guideline for how to live your life, of care about the people around you, support them if they're trying hard, support them with all of your efforts too, and if you're a friend of somebody I love, then you know what, I love you too. It was just like so much special moments at this service, and I had numerous people who they know Nate at different levels, and they were just like, what, that was one of the most uplifting services I've ever been to.
I told Nate afterwards that I've been to a lot of what people are calling celebration of life, but it's a little bit of a downer. Like
Right.
it's a little bit of like kind of sad, but this was like truly a celebration of his life, and it wasn't particularly sad. It was very, very well done. And we had like 260 chairs set up in the front yard. Scotty Beck played an amazing rendition of fucking, what was it? It was
Bob Dylan, Forever Young.
dude,
So good.
It was so good. So good.
And your words, what you said, how you got through that without
Oh, dude.
breaking down was amazing. And because I was breaking down, and I was going to play right after you spoke, and I'm sitting there just fighting these tears, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, I gotta sing.
Yeah,
here
and then
in a
they're like,
minute.
hey, sing a song now.
So, but it was, and then and your sister, what she said was amazing. Everything was just so great. It was such a great tribute, and man, it was just really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that strikes me as we talk about it, is like, I think one of the things my dad was really good at was making sure, like you said, to show up for people, and and was a really good friend, and like made sure that he was there, when his friends needed it, and like everybody at this table was a participant, Scott played this and showed up and got everything ready and fitted into a day with a gig, and Nick and Zach and Brad all were here setting up and doing everything we needed, make sure it was special. And I think in a lot of ways, obviously there were a lot of people there, and that was special. My dad would have meant a lot to him, but I also think he would have been touched by the fact that the friends, our friends, showed up for us. The way that he, I think, would have liked to think that he showed up for people, and so I think it was a great tribute to him, and I think he would like this a lot. I think he would think that this was cool. One of the things I talked about in the eulogy was the fact that he, it's sort of a funny thing to pick out, right? Because there were a lot of big themes, right? I mean, I talked about my dad as somebody who, was a great family person, and somebody who was a mentor, and somebody who served the community, and there were these really big themes, and I kept like going back to this thing where I'm like, I got to talk about the fact that you just loved movies and TV. It almost felt like the thing that didn't quite fit, like it's like it doesn't fit, but for my dad, if I think back over the years, the more I thought about it, the more it meant it was important for me, because it was something that was about him, and it was almost like the one thing that I think was about him. Like
Yeah.
everything else was about the way that he related to other people, because he was so good at meeting people on their terms. Like I told stories about the fact that, he coached soccer teams that he didn't know shit about. He'd never seen a soccer game, and he coached every soccer game every team I ever played on. And with my sister, it's like he dove in fully when she had this job or that trip or whatever. But movies, like I remember when I was young, my dad was a pest control advisor like yours, Zach, and so there's conferences you'd have to go to, and he'd go to these conferences in Sacramento or in the Bay Area. And, it was like you could check in, like, and then bolt, right? And you have to be be back at the end of the day to get your credits, right? But, like, I got to sit there through that shit. Mm-hmm. I think he went through some of them, so don't posthumously revoke his pest control license. But, but I'd call, he'd call home at night, check with us. And I'd be like, "What'd you do, Dad?" And he'd be like, I saw 3 movies today. It was like my dad would go to the movies and he would movie hop all. And like I remember as a kid, every weekend we'd go to the movies or we'd rent movies. We rented. My dad took me to Bev's Video Kingdom, the video store, and we'd just rent. There was no end, no limit to the number of movies I could rent. If I could watch them, he'd rent them for me. And we would movie hop as together with him. I went to my first movie with him, and I think a lot of that was like, it's sort of funny. Everybody has parents that share things with them that they love. Like you share certain things, and I guess my dad was a farmer, so to an extent, that wasn't a thing that he shared of substance. And I talked a lot in the service about the fact that the farm was something he created for, made a space for us in a lot of ways. But I think movies and TV was like the thing. My dad wasn't a guy that like was a huge sports fan, or he wasn't a guy that was like a mechanic, or he wasn't, like if I think about like what was the thing that my dad was, he loved movies.
It was really, I thought it was weird during the eulogy when you did 90 minutes on the Shield, but I mean, it was really perfect.
Yeah. Well, first things first, right? You gotta honor them where they're at.
I love the list of movies.
Yeah,
I love that you listed.
Yeah.
It made me so happy. I smiled, and then you had the random picks, and it reminds me of like what my pick is, the way it jumped around. Oh, it made me really happy.
It was a great mix of movies, and just so for those that out there that weren't at the service, it was the kicker was the last one was Notting Hill.
Notting Hill, which was his favorite.
But he had like Superbad in there.
Yeah,
And,
it was like super bad straight into like the Hurt Locker.
Yes.
And one of the things I loved about it, because he wrote this he had like there's these little entries, these answers to questions that I got to read that he had written, and that one was about movies, and there's probably 150 entries into this. What's your favorite movie? Goes by genres. And one of the things I liked about my dad was like he was unapologetic about the genre stuff, but he also like he had stuff. Superbad's, he was 70 years old when Superbad came, whatever, right? Like he's not, like he's not the target demographic,
Right? It's
But
not like seeing Animal House in the theater. It's
and
like,
he just didn't. He was a 63-year-old man, when Notting Hill came out, or whatever, he did not give a fuck. Like he just liked what he liked. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, as like I said in the service, that was one of the things I loved. And I it was, when he was in his last days, I turned on the movie. He couldn't watch, but I put an earbud in his ear, and he and I watched, and listened to Notting Hill together. And, he said, he told somebody later, wow, we watched Notting Hill. I love that movie. It was like he really, really did connect with things in that way, and they made him feel a certain way, and it didn't matter. Like that was it. However he needed to feel, and he liked action, and he liked, So it was a great. It really was something. I think doing a movie podcast in his honor is definitely not just the right way, because he was a fan of mine, and by way of that, a fan of anything that I did and anything my friends did. But he also, this was a genre. This was a vehicle for him to really, connect to things that he loved. And he loved American Graffiti. And my dad was born and raised in the Central Valley, California, right here where we're sitting. And he graduated high school in 1964. American Graffiti is set in 1962, and as many of you will know, George Lucas graduated from Downey High School, which is just 15 miles from where we're sitting now. And Downey High School was in the middle of Modesto, California, where American Graffiti is set. So it's set in 1962, 2 years before my dad graduated high school. So my dad would have been 16 when the movie was set. And it was about, it was a snapshot of one night in teenage life, right? Basically late summer, just when school has started back up for a bunch of people that have sort of graduated, or different stages, some in high school, some have just graduated, some are out a year or two and at Modesto Junior College. My dad cruised those streets, and he went to Modesto Junior College, right? So like that era was something that meant a lot to him, and the movie itself, right? Like, I'm very curious to hear what you all say. I had seen the movie one time years ago, and I did not remember. I remembered the movie very well and did not remember the movie at all in the same sense. Like, I did not appreciate the movie the way that I did this time. But I'm curious. So, had you seen it, Nick?
Yeah, multiple times growing up, because not only is it like, connected to where we grew up, but my mom is from Petaluma, Cotati, and this was the majority filmed in downtown Petaluma. So I grew up making trips to see the family, in that area of California, and then being told all the time, "Oh, there's where they filmed the scene in American Graffiti. Here's where," and so I knew the landmarks from a really like young age and the connection there. So it was on off and on in our home.
And I didn't realize this wasn't filmed in Modesto until
Yeah.
I was doing my notes.
Really? Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit, this is filmed in Petaluma?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Which
my
is
whole
crazy
life I
because it
thought it was
actually
filmed
looks
in
a lot
Modesto.
like Modesto. I mean,
It does.
And he picked it, supposedly Petaluma, because he said that in the 10 years since the movie was set, Modesto had changed too much, according to Lucas.
Okay.
But Petaluma, actually, it was not Petaluma, it was Santa Rosa. Had not, and then also Petaluma, they got kind of booted from Santa Rosa after a couple days of filming, but Petaluma had stayed much more true to that era, and so he chose that area.
Yeah.
What about you, Zach? Had you seen it?
I had never seen this movie, so this was a first time watch. And as with most things made before like 1985, I was like, ugh. But in honor of Keith, I watched the whole movie. And I've got takes, but we'll get to those in a minute.
Same here. I had not seen the movie. I've known about it, Lucas, Star Wars, all of the things that you think about with Lucas, like I knew about, and I knew that this was like his first really big hit, and still somehow never sat down and watched it, even though I'd cruised the streets of McHenry and done some of the things that this movie talks about. But I was glad to have watched it, and I'm glad I watched it kind of now, because I think like I had the right perspective to have some takes on what I think about it and its influence and things like that. So I'm pretty excited to talk about it as well.
Yeah. What about you, Sky?
Yeah, I definitely saw it multiple times as a kid, and I remember really liking it as a kid, and kind of always thinking how cool it was, because watching them, it's like, oh man, I wish we could do that and whatever when I was younger. And then I hadn't seen it for many years, and I've seen clips of it, off and on here and there. So a lot of the kind of the famous scenes, like him crashing the moped when he first towed or whatever. Like I'd seen that, and then like the water balloon in the face, like all the kind of the comedy hits I'd seen a bunch of times. So it was weird because like I kind of wish I'd forgotten about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And saw it again, but it was kind of a rougher watch than I was hoping for.
Yeah.
It didn't hit, unfortunately, for me.
Yeah.
It was fine.
How dare you, Scott? This was nominated for 5 Academy Awards.
Yeah.
I know, and I feel like
5?
I'm letting Keith down big time with
He would be so
very-
disappointed in you
I
if you
know.
said anything other than what you felt about it. He would be like, "You sell out, little bitch."
Well, good, yeah. So anyway, it was fine. It was good. It definitely did bring up some cool memories of growing up around here. And I do love the fact that Modesto has a movie and we as well, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on it?
Yeah.
Nick?
So I'm with you, Scott. And I mean, it didn't, age great, different performances, still sentimental about different things, remembering different scenes that I remember from like a young age, like the Faros, just like different things that I remember quotes from. And I'm like, oh, I know what he was about to say. And I remember that from a really like young age. It's been a long time since I had seen it. Yeah. Just like all of a sudden it's like the last like 15 or 20 minutes come and you're like, oh wait, we're cruising towards the end. And then like the teacher, Mr. Wolf, like there's
So
like
the teacher part, that was the part
and
that
there's
I
like just different stuff.
I was like,
You're
are we supposed to be
WTF?
rooting? Are
What's
we
going
supposed to
on
be
here?
rooting for that guy?
Yeah, that was a
watching
really
section of this one sections like with my wife, and then in the the car with the girl, like when he just picks up the girl and they get pulled over with the cops and
It was a different time.
And him like taking the stroll in the junkyard in the middle of the night with the young girl.
I kind of felt like he showed some pretty good restraint.
No,
well, but still, it's just kind of a weird situation. Like, it's one thing to drive around in the car, but how'd they end up in that junkyard just kind of walking around like,
Well, and I looked at a little bit where it's like a lot of it was filmed at night, like for costs. Like I read a little history on it. Like they had to film at night, so there was multiple scenes where like they're in darkness, like when they're in the hills and like night they're in the junkyard.
You mean the light's not great in it?
Oh, and just a lot of them. It's
the scenes are at night because of that.
It all takes place during the course of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I always take it as being like intentional that way, sort of I mean, no one's mentioned
like
Dazed
there's
and
sections where they're like
Confused
in
yet,
like a
but
room, right? Where it's like they're in rooms where it's like black silhouettes.
yeah.
Like with the teacher, Mr. Wolf, and then that section. Anyways, I still like it. There's still moments where like we laughed like in the beginning, and actually I feel like the girl and is it John?
Milner.
Yeah, John.
Yeah.
John and the girl. I mean, that's like my favorite. I think that I like their back and forth.
It's funny you mentioned the lighting because there is also that one scene where there just happens to be two gigantic spotlights.
I was like,
is this like one of those?
It's on the corner, and I'm like, did they accidentally?
Like a sale? Like,
when they're like
where
they're shaving cream in like the car, and there's like a spotlight
and
in the background.
There's two giant spotlights. I'm like, is that just like back in the day they used to use like they would do that like when there's like a big sale at a spot and they would have the spotlights, but it's just like there's just random spotlights back there. They don't mention it at all, but it just looks strange.
Yeah, there's a spotlight.
So I actually liked it more than I thought I would. Mm-hmm. I think my real problem with this movie is my problem with most movies like 79, 80 and previous, and it's the acting. Like there's something that people did back in the day, I guess you would say, that the acting takes me out of it. It feels performative. It feels like stage acting. It feels like a play.
So I have that same issue exactly in general, which is part of why I was so resistant to watching again. And I did not get that near as much in this one as I usually do. And I don't know why. Like part of it, I mean, we haven't talked at all about this yet, but like the actors that we're talking about here are phenomenal in terms of the careers that are coming, right?
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is a freaking carpenter before he is in this role, and obviously goes on, to hang up, hook up with Lucas in some famous movies coming up.
I think
after
Ford
that.
is like probably the bright spot as far as the acting for me.
I mean, you don't think that? Like, I actually think Richard Dreyfuss is really good in it, and I think Ron Howard's really good.
Yeah, I think Ford is actually. He wasn't my favorite.
I didn't like Opie. Opie didn't do it for me. He seems
there are spots for sure where Ron Howard.
But I think the young girl is a little much for me.
Yeah, there's spots for sure.
Good, like it was not bad. It's just it seems it just takes me out of it. It feels a little bit unrealistic.
Well, I think one thing in defense of the film is they had a budget of $770,000.
Yeah.
Like, so they're not going to get mountains of takes, so
totally
they're going to have to kind of get stuck with a few things. So that would be my only argument against it, because like you said, a lot of these actors are actually really good. But that my biggest thing was like one of the fight scene. That was really rough.
I mean, how old is Dreyfuss in this movie? Like, how old is the actor?
Oh,
there was most of the people were in their mid to late 20s.
Yeah, because Dreyfuss looks like a 35-year-old man wearing those. He's wearing like slacks and like a button down. And
although some of that is like that style, right? Like that wouldn't have been. My guess is that would have been not that crazy. You know what I mean? Like out of character to wear.
No, totally. But I'm saying like when I watch it now, I'm like that guy obviously like. He's been working for 10 years at the bank.
I mean, he's only like 24 when it's filmed. Really? So he's not that old. I mean, it's not, he's not, he's similar to the way that most of the actors who play high school students now would be aged.
Right.
I mean, I think so it's funny. That's a good segue to kind of my take, which when I watched this, it was just so wild to me to be like, oh my God, this is this generation's Dazed and Confused. Like this is the movie for, you know, Modesto in the early 60s that, you know, Dazed and Confused is for Texas in the late 70s. It's like it's the same things carry over of like, you know, if you grew up in a small town, you feel this movie in a way, no matter what small town you grew up in, you kind of feel it in the same way that, you know, I think that people do with Dazed and Confused. And even some of the, you know, the acting in Dazed and Confused is sometimes okay. And, you know, they all look a little bit older than they should be for being high schoolers. So it's so funny how I was watching this thing and like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's not a carbon copy, but it's absolutely what Linklater was doing when he did Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, I mean, I just hadn't appreciated, and this is part of what I think, you know, you were saying that you're glad you watched it now. I'm glad I rewatched it now and didn't watch it times in between, in the sense that, like, I just never realized how much Dazed and Confused, I don't want, not a rip-off at all, but like how influenced Dazed and Confused clearly was by this, right? Like there are some scenes, like the liquor store scene is, you know, almost like a perfect replica in some ways in Dazed and Confused as it is in this. And I think some of what, you know, what I like about this is not, I love Dazed and Confused, and I think, you know, partly I just like it better because it's a movie that was made later, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think some of what you're getting at is like,
That's exactly my point.
you know, I think, you know, the style is enough more modern that's more connected, that's more consistent with what we expect out of movies, right? For whatever set of reasons, choreographed fights and the way that acting has sort of become more attuned to the screen, and like there's more takes. But I think that watching it now and forgiving those things just a little bit reminded me of a lot of the core things I love about Dazed and Confused. Like,
so
it's just,
I think you do a shot-for-shot remake of this. Everything is exactly the same, but you just do it with
the
modern day actors and modern day filmmaking, and I think this is a spectacular film. Because the story's great, and I love movies that do the one night.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, some of my favorite movies are that, and this is probably like pretty early in that.
one of the early ones.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing that the parallel that I'm sure we'll talk about is the soundtrack. Like, the soundtrack
absolutely
is killer.
Yeah.
Both movies. I mean, significant portions of the cost of the movie was buying the rights to the music.
Right.
Absolutely the exact same. So.
Yeah, and the songs I think were super representative of this era, right? And then that's one of the things my dad talked a lot about was you know, the music was very important, you know, in the movie for him. And I think, you know, the funny thing when I think about it, I think there's two things I really like hit me hard when I watched this that I just completely had not remembered. One was that, like, it's a real true coming of age movie, and I'm a guy that, like, that is my genre, right? And somehow I'm like, man, like, how did I sleep on this one so long when, like, I'd seen it probably as a young person? And this is sort of what I thought you were, or part of what you were sort of saying, Brad, is like, you know, I don't know if I loved coming of age movies as much when I was coming of age, you know, like, or so maybe I did, you know, but like, I think looking back on it now and being like, oh yeah, like that was one of the OG kind of like real struggling angst at this moment in time, you know, one of the things I loved. And the other was like, one of the things I sometimes associate with older movies is a kind of like naivete, like innocence, where there's a little bit there, you know, the movie and somehow is not being as risque as movies are now because the envelope has gotten pushed. But like the portrayal of them, you know, interacting with one another is pretty good. Like, it's pretty good, right? You know, the girls are, you know, talking shit. You know, they're sort of, you know, they're flipping each other off, and there's people mooning each other, and there's, you know, people giving each other a hard time, and like, it wasn't you know, it's obviously not a dark movie, but I don't think it was a movie that meant to paint them as more innocent than they were.
It's not Grease.
And
it's not Grease. Yes, there you go, dude. Yes, it's not Grease, right? And that's, I think, what I had in my head in some way.
It's PG, but I mean, definitely a PG-13, almost a hard PG-13 for, like, you know, some of the stuff they talk about.
Clear booty hole shot.
Yeah, you definitely hard bunghole. yeah.
But you know, it's the nostalgia movie. It's something that, you know, I think we've talked about before on the pod, is that Nate and I wrote a script, and it's, got the same kind of, feel of what was it like being in high school for us in the late 90s, and like the things that we were doing growing up in a small town. And this is just a shout out to anybody out there who knows a great producer who's willing to make a great movie, because I will say this
era's group.
Hey, American Graffiti made a shit ton of money. Dazed and Confused eventually made a shit ton of money. So, I think we've got a script just waiting for somebody who wants to make a lot of money. Let's do some shit.
We're like one person removed from Francis Ford Coppola, who was a producer on this movie.
Yeah,
Robbie, if you're listening, we've got a script.
Speaking of Robbie, so I didn't realize that Lucas and Coppola had co-founded American Zoetrope.
Yeah, and that's the only reason that American Graffiti got made was because
Coppola stepped in with
jumped in behind it. So that's pretty wild.
Yeah, so some connections there.
Scotty, not to like pick on your age, but you're closer to this than any of us. So what are your thoughts on this movie?
Love it.
I'm sorry,
Love
Scott.
Not sorry at all.
His face.
Not sorry.
My gray face, and I'm literally a grandpa now.
Oh,
Literally a grandpa.
Literally a grandpa.
Literal Grandpa. Literal Grandpa is my new band name.
Literal grandpa.
I like that. It's a cool emo band.
Yeah, no, I definitely, in general, I definitely like the nostalgia of it, and definitely, but again, it just didn't quite. I was expecting more. I was expecting more fun, and I think one of my biggest problems was like the Wolfman Jack stuff was just kind of, I don't know. They're all laughing at what he's saying. I'm like, okay, he's not saying anything.
Some of it was kind of wild. It was almost more like crazy than I thought. Like the radio would be like, if that was what Wolfman Jack was actually doing, like some weird, like, it was a little bit risque as far as like, it sounded like he was talking to like younger people, and like it was a little creepy. But, a little weird.
There was a few, like Nikki said, right? There's the scene where like
Cringy.
Where like Dreyfuss's character walks out and then pops a smoke for the teacher, and then like the teacher gets interrupted by some chick that's trying to like, obviously he's going to hook up with, and
or the teacher's like talking to a group of students, and he's like, oh, they would get really mad at me if I was talking to you sexy young ladies. Yeah. Oh, I mean, like,
and then he goes out, and then he ends up going off with some chick, and then my main problem was I was like, I don't know if we're not supposed to, like, I think the movie thinks we're rooting for that guy. Like there was a part of me that was like, they weren't like clearly making him out. The movie's tone at that time did not make it super clear to me that he was supposed to be like a
Dreyfuss was giving like the head nod, like, my teacher buddy's getting some again. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, or Milner with the girl, especially when.
So that's the funny. I didn't get any weird Milner shit. No, like Milner seemed like he played it pretty straight up.
They play it for weird when he gets her address. Obviously, the way to get, but then when you realize he's like,
he did it all
he's doing it
trying to take her home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he gets away with it. But then there's just there's a lot of young people out there, and there's like weird kind of creepiness to the whole thing, and it's, I don't know, I just the vibe.
I didn't get any of the creepy young people thing except the teacher. That was the only piece of it. Although I will say that Milner has the ultimate line, which is Judy's sister, her mother, I'll take any of them. Milner is like sleeper favorite character.
But isn't Wolfman Jack talking to like some girl at one point, and they're talking about pissing on each other, and I was like, what's going on?
Why are you being a prude, dude?
But it sounded like she was like 14 or something.
Wolfman Jack talking.
Hey man,
she was like, can we pee on you or something? It was like
water sports were big back then.
Wait, the 14-year-old to pee on Wolfman Jack?
That sounded like that.
I think you're. We're gonna need to go to the replay booth on that.
Minute mark.
I think we're gonna need to go find that to confirm.
My take on Wolfman Jack is the minute that he walks in and that guy's sitting there, I'm like, oh, it's Jason Segel with a beard. Like, it looks so much like Jason Segel to me. And I will admit,
it's actually Wolfman Jack.
I will admit that I'm terrible at like this game where I'm like, oh, that looks like this person. But dude, it looks so much like Jason Segel, like Mexican Jason Segel or
Hawaiian.
Please tell me that you guys
Jason
noticed
Segel.
the most obvious lookalike in this movie. Please tell me somebody else got it besides me.
You know,
you got me.
The Toad. Who does the Toad look like?
Small. Squint.
Does he look like Squint? You're talking about Squints, or does he look like the nerd from Revenge of the Nerds?
For Revenge of the Nerds.
No, to me it's fucking Steve-O from Jackass.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Wait,
I see
what?
that, absolutely.
He is absolutely
Especially
Steve-O
Steve-O
from
now
Jackass.
when he's wearing glasses.
Wait, who are we talking about?
Toad
Steve-O from Jackass is
Toad, the guy
Teddy
that
the Toad.
with the glasses and the.
I do not see that one bit. I actually think
You'll
I see
need to
it.
go back.
I think you're
It's
right.
it's their mouth.
Yeah, with the teeth and everything. The big
Identical, but really it's just the mouth.
teeth. No, it's
not
identical.
everything,
But
everything,
the funniest shit.
including
But
everything
no.
that's between the
So the
lips.
one time he's in the car with the girl, and like
That's
the
it.
dude that comes up that's basically like, he was fucking the girl back in the day, and like he's kind of like talking shit
Yeah.
to Steve-O. They both kind of look like Steve-O, and to me, I was like laughing my ass off. I was like, "There's fucking two Steve-Os."
Two Steve-Os in this movie. God, that's deep.
This is when Brad-
That's a deep Brad.
That's
cut
when
right there.
Brad like broke the silence between him and his wife watching it, like his EpiPen comment during, and it just really helped the movie move along.
All right, so I think we have some basic takes now. We're going to move on to our next segment. We have a special guest, and I'm really excited about it. My dad would be really excited about it. So, Dad, wherever you are, it's time to tune in if you haven't already.
Pull up a chair and grab yourself a drink. We'll hypothesize what directors think. Maybe sometimes get a guess. Makes us look good. Let's drink, laugh, and pretend we know what we're doing. Drinking with the director, brought to you by Last Call Brewing.
All right, so we're back, and we've had directors on, we've had actors on, we've had stars of movies, we've had the directors of movies. What we've never had is somebody that inspired a character
Yeah,
in a movie.
that is truth.
Today we have that.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, Daryl Weidel.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, Daryl, I'm going to introduce you by way of your inspiration in the movie, and we'll debate whether or not you were properly represented. But
Yeah, I'll debate that.
So Daryl, it was the president of the Faros, I believe, from 1962 to 1963, and then again from 64 to 65.
Yeah.
Must have lost some sort of fight or something for that gap year. So when do they shift? When do they switch the years?
We just had 1 year term.
Okay.
It was just,
And is it in the middle of the summer? It's like end of the, it's
yeah,
kind
I
of a
don't
school year
recall
thing.
exactly when it was. It was whenever the spirit moved us, I think.
So American Graffiti takes place in late 1962. So we're going to go ahead and say that you were just into your first term as the Faros president at that time.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, as you know, those of you that have seen American Graffiti, right, the Faros and the president of the Faros plays this sort of great role in the as one of the subplots of the movie. Sort of has some hijinks with the cops, and you know, leans a little heavy on our main character. So before I get into that, right, I want to take a quick pause. So part of the reason that I also wanted to have you on, Daryl, is because, of course, this is the Keith Monroe Memorial, or in honor of Keith Monroe show. And for years, my dad had said, "We got to do American Graffiti. We got to do American Graffiti." And part of the reason, not only did he love the movie, but because Daryl, he knew you when he was young and growing up. Tell us a little bit about how you knew my dad and what he was like when he was young, when you knew him.
Well, actually, my parents and your grandparents knew each other before we were born, I guess. They lived over on 6th Street, if I'm not mistaken, in Modesto. Then I remember they moved out here, bought a peach orchard across the street, and moved over here in
Yep.
mid-50s, early 50s.
I mean, the Bev's Outdoor Studio is, in fact, sitting in that peach orchard, in one of those peach orchards right now.
Yeah, I remember that. It's just, there were, I think, 4 families that were friends, and we'd get together on weekends and go on picnics and things like that, and visit each other's in their homes and all. And that's just about what it was. We weren't real super close.
Yeah, but
But
it was like families
my
getting together at the
parents were-
picnics on the Sundays. Yeah, my dad talked a lot about how it was like back in those days. You just kind of Sundays, somebody might stop by. You'd just kind of be around, or you'd all go, take stuff to a park and do a kind of a picnic. And
That's pretty much it.
yeah. All right, so tell us a little bit about the Faros. So give us a little background, a little history of like how the Faros came to be, what they were in reality before we jump into the
right.
the movie version.
We were a bunch of teenagers. That's all we were. I actually tried to start it at Modesto High School in 1957, and the dean of boys said, "No, we're going to throw you out of school if you start that and start wearing colors to school and so on. So it kind of went underground and nothing happened. Well, a bunch of us graduated in 1960 from Modesto High School and went over to junior college, Modesto Junior College. And about 4 or 5 guys there one day were at one of their friends' house and said, we ought to start that club that we couldn't start back in 3 years ago. So they did. They got together and got a few friends and just started the club. And they called it the Faros Fraternity. It wasn't a car club at the time. It was just teenage boys getting together and doing what teenage boys do. We enjoyed cars and girls and beer and
America's
that's what
pastime.
Then, as time went on, we had friends that came in, and one friend would bring somebody else in, and gradually it started, spreading out to other schools. We started getting some people from Downey High School. It was named the Faros because they were trying to come up with a name, and the Faros, like the Egypt Pharaohs, spelled with a PH and all. One of the guys says, no, my uncle says we can't use that name because he belongs to the Pharaohs in Merced or somewhere. So they came up with the Faros, Pharaohs, and I don't know exactly how, but the logo that we have here, the FRS logo, supposedly was chosen because one of the people had a rubber stamp that was like that, and it was going to save $20 and not have to do it. So I'm not sure if that's exactly how it came to be because I didn't come in until a few months after it first started, but that's the story that I've heard.
Somebody had a stamp with their initials on it or something, and they're like, "This is perfect."
That's about what it was, and now we're incorporated. And this is registered trademark and the whole bit now.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
So it actually started with you guys. It wasn't like something that already existed somewhere else.
No,
so
it was just
started.
it was originally 4 or 5 guys from class of 1960 Modesto High School.
Okay.
What kind of cars are we talking about?
We were. Everybody had whatever they could afford. My first car was a '51 Mercury, and we had a '54 Mercury that I remember somebody had, and there was family cars that they drove. The dad's '56 Oldsmobile. I remember one of them was, and but like I say, it wasn't really a car club. It was just teenage boys doing what teenage boys do, and dragging 10th Street and McHenry Avenue and enjoying cars and girls. So,
Oh wait, so it wasn't just McHenry. It was you guys were cruising 10th Street.
10th Street. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So tell us this. So I was talking to Brad about this earlier. In our era, the cruising was a different location, but we sort of still did it. What was the loop that you guys did?
We were 10th Street, up and down 10th Street. It was a 2-way street, and we'd go down to, I think it was Burgess Drive-In. Well, in the movie it was Mel's Drive-In, but it was Burgess Drive-In on 9th Street, which I think was on 9th and O, and then we'd go back down to it was the Greyhound bus station, and the police station is down on the other end of it. Turn around and go back and just made a loop.
So it wasn't even the same direction that we run. They did it way cooler than we did it.
It was 2 ways, and then later on they made 10th Street into a 1-way street.
Right.
And you'd go down 10th and turn on the G Street, I guess, and back onto 11th and back.
So you guys never even made your way down like J to McHenry?
Not till later, till they I don't remember why they closed off 10th Street and moved it out to McHenry.
Is it possible that somebody pulled an axle off a police
No.
car?
A little bit of that story, though. George Lucas's dad came into. I worked in the county planning department for years, and he came in for something, and he was talking about the movie and how they do it. And they had to do quite some engineering to get that, to make sure that would, because they could only take one take. They didn't have no money to, do that. So they had to make sure all the shackles were cut off just right so it would do that.
Oh, that thing popped up great. It looks good. The movie.
It does
for
look
sure.
good. Yeah.
So, quick question: how badass were the Pharaohs in the
They
60s?
weren't. We were lovers. we were lovers, not fighters.
Okay.
But did you have the reputation? Because you get a bunch of guys together that got some vehicles and they're out there, cruising for women. There's going to be reputations. Was it more like y'all built a reputation and it started to kind of be like, oh, we'll just go with this, or?
It wasn't until a couple other groups started forming. A couple of other, the Deacons was a group, and the, I don't know, Southside Boys, and they had a couple other groups, and inevitably there'd be some conflicts that you run into each other. But we weren't the fighters. If we could run, we'd run.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why do you think in the movie? I mean, like, why did George Lucas choose to have the Faros? And the Faros aren't in the movie. Sort of. I mean, I don't view it anyway as them being the sort of particularly roughest crowd, but they're tough and they're kind of like, they're the badasses. Why do you think Lucas chose the Faros?
One of our members was a good friend and next door neighbor of George Lucas, and he talked to George about the characters, and George said it was a conglomeration. It was, it wasn't one particular character. Every character was made up of different people that he knew, and he put characteristics of each character into something. And the same thing with the club.
So you were the Faros were the Deacons, and they were the Southside Boys, and it was kind of a combo.
Yeah.
So 1960, you graduated from high school.
Yes.
And then 1972, I think this movie comes out.
Yeah, 73,
How
73, I believe.
How awesome was that? Like, do you get the whole crew together and everybody go to the movies?
Oh yeah, and we still do. Every year they show it at the State Theater.
Oh wow!
And we get together, and they usually bring us up on stage and say a few words. But
in 72, I mean, that had to feel like awesome.
Well, the movie was every place, United States, every town had something similar to that, and it was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
Because everybody could relate to it. It was everybody had their Woodward Boulevard in Detroit or whatever, and we had 10th Street.
Yeah, it's still considered one of the most money making movies of all
it's
time.
Most profitable,
budget,
I think.
Yeah, profitable profit wise. It's just crazy.
He spent the biggest portion of his budget on getting the rights to the song.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I read this. I read that it's the very first movie to basically completely ditch a movie score and try to take popular music and match it to tracks separate from it being played in the movie.
Oh wow!
Essentially responsible for the great soundtracks of the movies we have now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Daryl. So we've been talking a little bit, and there's a movie I want to ask if you've ever seen, because it's for our generation. It's kind of the movie that matches up the most with American Graffiti. Is the movie Dazed and Confused? Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
All right,
sorry.
No, it's interesting because it's there's a guy who grew up in small town Texas, and he wrote a movie that basically. It's not a carbon copy, but it's got all of the same kind of hits as it's using popular music from the late 70s. All the cars and everything is period appropriate. It was made in the 90s, but it's all about small town 70s Texas high school. And it's got, kind of the same feel, the same vibe. And I was just interested to see if you heard it, because it's like, its counterpart is American Graffiti, absolutely.
And I wonder, so how well, because I mean, that one doesn't have a ton of cruising in the same way, right? There's some particulars that were probably different in the 70s. Like when you watched this in 73, how much did it hit you that it, how well did it capture? Because sometimes, you're too close to something, right? Like you were literally, some part of amalgamation of a character in the movie. Right. When you watched it, did you feel like, it got this wrong and it got that wrong, or did you go, holy crap? That was my
There are always little details that you say, no, that didn't happen, or that's not right. We didn't do that. But overall, it was pretty true to how things were.
Yeah.
So when we cruised McHenry, Nate and I back in the day when we were in high school, it was typically we'd go Briggsmore. We'd kind of go north. We would
almost to Standerford, and
that was kind of our loop. But California Street is where all the racing was happening, and I don't know where were the races going on in your day, as far as Modesto. How far out did you guys have to go, and where were the races taking place?
Right downtown, and a lot of them right downtown.
Nice.
Got stopped a time or two. Kansas Avenue was one of the big ones. Paradise Road, which was in the movie.
Yeah, they mentioned Paradise.
Road.
Yeah.
Then they had the Beard Industrial Track. When they did that, some took place out there because it was nice, new, smooth streets and no buildings or nothing, no one out there, and so that was happening out there quite a bit.
And what are the stakes of these races? Is it just pride, or are we really racing for pinks and stuff like none of that?
I don't know if anybody else was. I wasn't.
Do you remember a particular one of the drivers that had a running hadn't been beaten for a really long time? Was there a certain car that you remember?
No, we didn't have a little deuce scoop that was the fastest. No. We had 55 Chevys like Falfa had from Turlock.
Yeah.
So
In fact, they used about three different cars in that movie. For that. Yeah.
Oh, really? What's your favorite from the movie? I mean, you were, Faros
I had every car that I had was in the movie. I had 51 Mercury, had 58 Edsel, and 57 Chevy. They were all in the movie.
Which one of those is your favorite?
Oh well, the 57 was the best. I put a Corvette engine in it, 327.
Oh, nice.
Oh, man.
Horse. It was fast.
So that's a question. How mechanical were the people in the Faros? Like, was it pretty, like, was everybody pretty good at working on their cars and all that stuff? And was that kind of the thing to do?
I wouldn't say
Or were there some
everybody.
cold
but there-
trickles?
we had some that were very mechanical and built some drag cars and whatever.
Yeah.
But like I say, it was a Faros fraternity. It was just some teenagers that, hung out together and had fun. And then it kind of morphed into a car club later on.
Yeah.
I got drafted in 1966, and so I was out of it. So after I was out is when it became more car-oriented.
Okay.
Did the Faros expand to other cities? Was it a club that became, across the state, or even like,
No.
it just stuck to Modesto?
It was
only?
Modesto.
Okay,
It was
gotcha.
Modesto.
how do you become a Pharaoh? Was it at the beginning?
Blood initiation?
Yeah. Were there any initiations? Were there any?
Oh yeah, there were initiations. All kinds of them. One of them, we went out to Daryl golf course and had to go in the ponds in the water and try to find golf balls. One of them, we took a toilet and sat it down on the corner of 10th Street and 10th and it wasn't Thrifty's drugstore was there on the corner. Sat a toilet down on the corner and had a guy sitting there with his pants down. had to send him in and had to go in and buy some Kotex and
Oh, man.
me personally, I had to put on a diaper. We were at a girl's house out in West Modesto, and they got a big old half-gallon jug with milk in it and a nipple on it and put me in a diaper, and I had to go around and knock on people's doors and ask to use their phone. all that.
How did we? I mean, we missed the best.
That's some good stuff.
That's just solid.
And with all the cell phones and video cameras and stuff now, you probably had to be happy that you weren't growing up in that.
Oh yeah, no phones or no permanent record.
That's a good question. That's a good question. As somebody that's been around for a while, is this the greatest time to be a teenager?
Now?
No.
Back then,
back in
yeah,
the
I think
60s.
back then it was the innocent times.
Yeah.
It seemed like it. I mean, there's a lot of like adult themes that kind of weave in and out of this, but like there's an innocence to it that I just feel like is lost.
I mean, I think this is I feel this sort of like tension when I watch that in that way. That's like there's things about. You sort of opened, right? Like we like cars and girls and beers, like everybody's trying to get laid and get drunk a little too young and, drive a little too fast. I mean, there are things about it. I think what I liked about the movie that in this sort of previews and is post on what I already said, but like there's an innocence that is still framed by things that are eternal about young people, right? Right? People are trying to get laid. People are trying to have sex. People are saying crass things and flipping their friends off and talking shit. And then I think there's a way in which I think part of why I might agree that could have been the best era is because it's the purest form of those things that are eternal, right? Like you're pursuing those things in a format where there's not that much interrupting it, right? Like the best thing to do is go hang out with your friends and drive and see what might, happen that night on the booze front, the cars front, or the sex front. You know what I mean? Like that's
like you said, there were no cell phones.
Right.
There were no screens to look at except the television screen. But
yeah.
But you had to socialize face to face.
Yeah.
I mean, that was our biggest thing for going out to McHenry was just, getting out there to mix it up, see some people, meet some new people. And because, it was a chance to get out of the house.
And we were literally, our cruising days were, and you guys probably, Nick and Zach are just a few years younger than us. Ours were we graduated almost right before the first cell phone era, not the smartphone era. So we escaped it by a little more than that. But for us, we literally couldn't even really get a hold of each other when you'd have to see somebody.
Flip phones.
We were just a little earlier than that. Yeah, pager.
So I mean, in that sense, are you you'd have to drive by and see somebody, and then I still remember the kind of thing where you're like, the running joke where, I just saw the car, right? Like that really could have happened, right? Where we said, we saw that convertible, right? And now like the light was red, we can't find it, we got to keep circling
or
until we see it.
When he picks up the girl's sister and he's trying to get rid of her, he has no way to call anyone or to figure out where her sister's at. Yeah, exactly.
They coming back.
He has to trick her. It's great.
So now was cruising completely legal, or because like when it became illegal, in high school we weren't supposed to do it, and they there's no cruising signs everywhere.
It never was real. They passed an ordinance, a city ordinance, saying if you pass a certain checkpoint
7 times,
so many times in a given amount of time, that was illegal. But no, it wasn't illegal till it got so big that a lot of people from out of town were coming in. Right. And in one year, somebody got shot and killed. Oh, okay. And it had nothing to do with the cruise, but it just happened on the same night. And so everybody got all excited about it, and they banned it.
Yeah, because there's American Graffiti Nights, right? I mean, that has spurred this sort of cruising tradition for,
Yeah, and then several years ago, they decided to bring it back organize it and make it all controlled. So it's totally different than it was.
I mean, we used to go, whoever had the coolest truck or like our buddy G had a Corvette. We used to take his Corvette up and down McHenry over and over and yell at girls out the window. And it was just a mess. And we got one time, I remember we got a gun pulled on us once. We had this was 99, 98. A gun pulled on us. I remember my wife has a story about some guy telling him to roll the window down. When they rolled the window down, he had his member. He showed them his member through the window, and they were just mortified by that.
Not even.
But it was like much different time than what we're talking about in this movie. It's so cool. So you got drafted in '66.
Yes.
And then when you came back, did you get plugged back into the Faros?
No, the Faros. I didn't. I got married while I was in the service, and that's what happened to the club. People got drafted, like I said, and joined military and got married, and lives just got in the way, and it just fizzled out in 1973. And it was gone from 1973 till 2011.
Okay.
We had, in 2010 we had our 50th class reunion, and some of the wives says, quite a few guys were in the Faros. You guys ought to get together. So
we need to get you guys out of the house.
Yeah. So we met at one of the members' houses up in Tahoe and sat around the kitchen table and tried to remember names and contact information and so on. And we did that, and we contacted people, and we started meeting just once a month at the restaurant and then at coffee shop and just socialized. And then we were those old timers were dead set that we weren't going to take any more members. Last man standing kind of a deal that was going to be gone.
Yeah.
And then some of the newer members said, no, we ought to keep it going. So, it's been 5 years ago now, maybe. We decided to take in new members.
So that's why I keep seeing guys sitting taking a shit on the corner of 10th, and I couldn't figure out what happened. But
the guy that rang my doorbell wearing a diaper, that was weird.
That makes sense.
Daryl's just standing. Daryl's standing there in the bushes with a cell phone, just taking a video of the whole
pictures,
thing.
Right?
So did A&W exist back then, or when? Or?
Yeah, A&W existed.
Okay.
And that got to be a kind of a controversial thing with the PH Faros here the last few years. We had a member, Bob Moss, in our club, had a half-brother, Larry Moss, and he wanted to join. And we weren't taking any new members, and he got all upset. And so he got together and formed a group of the Faros, the PH Faros. And there was some controversy involved. They got involved in some of the things and tried to take, we were the real Faros in the movies and all that. And they started meeting in the A&W drive-in, and they had a big banner put up that says the original meeting of the original Faros. And there was some bad blood for a while. But
knife fight
sounds like a rumble.
And they just wanted to get big. They just took anybody that had $20 coming to our club.
They're a Faro now, yeah.
Huh.
So do you have a classic car now? Do you still have one that's from that era?
I have one that's from that era. It's not a classic car. It's just an old car I bought new in 1972. I've got a 1972 Ford Ranchero.
Oh.
GT.
And still have it.
I still have it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got about 70,000 miles on it.
My,
But it's not in great shape. It's been parked outside for 50 years, but
So
it still runs. It's licensed and
Yeah,
insured.
one of our good friends who's actually been on the podcast before. He's a chief of police now, but he was the guy that had his dad had an auto shop in Modesto, and he had a '70 Mustang that he actually crashed into a canal upside down. And then, you'd think he was racing and he crashed in a canal, you'd get something smaller, but he got a 69 GTO next. Yeah. And we were out on McHenry one night cruising, and he had posi traction, and we were like, it's 3 cars deep on all sides, and he just lit him up right in the middle. I was just like, you're just asking for the police to pull us over right now.
Well, we had a member that just passed away here a couple of weeks ago, and he had a '70 Mustang. He still had it when
Yeah.
he died. I don't know what's become of it yet. Grabber Blue.
Yeah.
He bought it new in 1970.
I just realized that Lieutenant Dan, who crashed that into the canal, he was in fact racing a 1987 Astrovan when he.
No. That was like Huddleston's. It was the '63 Oldsmobile. It was the granny car.
All right, we're gonna call Lieutenant Dan. I thought it was
I'm pretty
the van.
sure he was not racing. I think he was right. It was a '63 Oldsmobile. I thought.
Okay. So there's one piece of the movie that I've been curious about. Wolfman Jack. So my dad always talked about Wolfman Jack as being a real mainstay. Like that was he talked about that as being a really good representation of, how like big a deal Wolfman Jack was and how mysterious he was. And so what's your take on that part of the movie and how you remember Wolfman Jack in sort of popular culture at that time?
Well, I mean, he was in Mexico supposedly because he could broadcast with all the power to, go everywhere.
No FCC,
And,
yeah.
No,
that was
in the movie. It was like the studio on Orangeburg where
Right.
K5 was, KMOD, and it was. We listened to it.
And that was he was a big deal when you were out cruising.
He was one of them.
Yeah.
And then later on, when they organized and started having the car show here locally, they had him come in.
Okay.
Come in and
Yeah.
come to a couple of events.
Yeah. Did people really go searching for him ever?
Not me. I didn't care anything about him. Just a disc jockey.
So it seemed like everybody was listening to the same radio station. Was that how it was back then? Everybody was kind of plugged into the same thing?
It was similar in the movie, and they'd listen, and there'd be dedications, and people would call in and do that. So
There was like prank calling. Like that was he was prank calling people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like. Was that? I feel like that was like the
early
first
Jerky
showing,
Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Daryl, as far as you've seen this movie, obviously a lot. You guys have gone to the reunions and stuff. What is like your favorite scene, and what's the scene that you're just kind of like, it's my least favorite. But what are the moments that stick out to you in the movie, and those that don't?
I don't know if I can pick a favorite. I mean, it was pretty representative of everything that we did. We didn't we didn't break into pinball machines or anything like that. At least not that I know of. We had some members that got arrested for different things. One thing they did do when they made 10th Street one way, and you had to go down to 8th Street, I guess, and go around the corner, and they put concrete blocks out in the street to make you turn around the corner. Well, some of our members took the blocks and rearranged them so they just came right back into the curbs. Around the corner, and oops, we're on the sidewalk.
That's pretty.
Yeah,
good.
they got arrested for that. They
Now,
spent a few hours in jail.
I mean, Modesto is probably a lot smaller town back then. Like, were you guys on like a first name basis with the cops and things like that? Or?
Yeah, there was a couple of them that we knew by heart.
Yeah.
we had one actually that was a sponsor. He'd take us out camping out to Gardner's Cove out on Mays Boulevard, and he was all right. But,
No, that's cool.
but there was one, Applequist. He was one that was after us all the time.
He had the vendetta.
So if a cop's name's Applequist, he's definitely after you. He's like that's the cop that wants to get you.
But some of them, they were pretty good. I remember one night I was riding with a friend. It was in my Mercury, my 51 Mercury, and he had a 16-ounce can of Olympia beer, big tall can of beer, and cops pulled us over. We were driving alongside some girls real slow, and the cop pulled us over, and he grabbed that beer, my friend did, and put it in the glove box. Well, the glove box is 6 inches tall, and the beer can was 9 inches tall, so it was in there sideways. And back then you had to have the registration of your car registration was on the steering column, had spring-loaded clips to go around the steering column. Well, the cop comes up and he shines his flashlight in there to look at the registration on the steering column, and here beam of light goes there. Here's all this beer running out. But he didn't say a word. Let us go, and the car had rubber floor mats in it. We drove over to a gas station and took the hose and hosed it all out. We're good to go.
Oh, man, we got. I was with a few friends out one night, and we got pulled over because he had his graduation tassel hanging from the mirror, and apparently it's not supposed to have it hanging down there or whatever. He pulls us over, and they had some beers in the back. Well, one of the guys took the beers and stuck them in a duffel bag. It was a baseball bag to hide them. And the cop comes, gets our stuff, and goes back and checks it. He comes back and says, "Hey, I can't have that hanging on your mirror. You guys, be careful, whatever." The second he left, the scent of beer just filled the car. And we're like, "What the hell? Get out of here. Go, go, go." So we get out of there, and we pull around the corner, and we open it up, and it was in a baseball bag, and the steel cleats, he was like, he had his feet on top of it, and as he was sitting there, it pushed down and it poked through one of the holes. But it just happened to happen right after the cop left.
So just beer just getting shotgunned in the bag.
We would have been screwed because we were all underage.
Whose baseball gear got jacked?
I'm not going to say names.
Well, maybe something similar happened, but we'd been out with some girls and we had some beer, and I'd taken them home, and it was me all by myself, and I was 21 or 22 years old at the time, and I had a 6-pack of beer sitting behind the driver's seat in the back seat, and it was out North Modesto, out in the country somewhere, and the cop pulled me over. I was by myself, and he, same thing, shined his flashlight in there, and he came across that beer in the back. Oh, his eyes lit up. He goes, "So sorry." He got me, and then he looked at my ID, and I was over 21. He was so deflated. So then he had to search that car all around it. He found a license plate light was out or something, so he had to find something right.
Yeah. See, there it is. That
Driving away
inspired
like,
the movie, right?
He was so excited. Got this kid with his beard, and I was legal.
So my dad always talks about he's just a little bit younger than you, but he always talks about $5. He could have $5 and he could fill his car up with gas, go to the movies, get popcorn and a soda, come out, get a cheeseburger, fries, fill the car up with gas again, and go home with $5. Was that real?
Well, I was going to mention that earlier. We're talking about cruising, and we'd cruise all night long because gasoline was 26 cents a gallon. I can remember gas were 16 cents a gallon. And people were pulling up pickups with 55-gallon drums in the back and loading them up.
I filled up in San Jose yesterday for $5.45 a gallon.
I will say we kind of got lucky because there were some ARCO stations where you could get like 95 cents a gallon. Like when we were,
I remember 99.
Senior year of high school, freshman year of college. It was still around $1.
You were the gas hawk, which is ironic because you drove a Toyota
had an 82 Celica.
Yeah. So you got 800 miles a gallon, but you were like, there's a place across town that I can get 98 cents. I'm driving. I'm going.
I do always enjoy that. I enjoy driving 10 miles to get 2 cents off of a gallon and saving yourself less than what you paid to drive over.
I was telling one of our friends just recently, I was like, I drive an electric car now. I was like, I actually don't see gas stations. They're like, it's not even in my peripheral vision anymore. I don't look at the price of gas. It's like they don't exist for me anymore, and I love it.
You don't see gas.
I find the cheap stuff. I went to the gas station that I normally go to. I was going to a friend's house in Lodi, and I needed some gas, and over at 6th and L Street, it's about the cheapest around. And I went in there and I said $60 and on pump 7. And he said, "Well, we only have premium. You want premium?" I said, "Okay." I was ready to go. I didn't want to hunt around, but I've had to pay for premium gas, and then I only run regular all the time. It's fine. But it was like 40 cents a gallon more than.
And he's like, "You got somebody that's somebody."
But like I said, back in the day, there was gas wars. The oil companies were in competition, and there was 2 stations out at Paradise and Vernon Avenue across the street from each other, and it got down to 16 cents a gallon. And in fact, one of our members, his father owned a grocery store there on Paradise Road at Vernon. And on New Year's Eve, we were having a party over at another friend's house just up the street. And we needed some heater. We needed some heat. It was cold, and he had a gas heater, but it wasn't hooked up. So we got a garden hose and hooked it up to the gas line. And we needed some tape. So there was a Sprouse Ritz variety store there on Vernon and in Paradise, or right on Paradise. And we went in there, got some tape, and taped it all up. But in the meantime, when I pulled up there, they didn't have any curbs and gutters. You just pulled up to the sidewalk. And that was in 1964, and Tiny Trammell was the union rep for the Cannery Workers Union, and he'd been out. I know he was out drinking all night. It was New Year's Eve, and he'd been going around to all the different places. And he had a 64 Plymouth hot rod Hemi and came around the corner from Carpenter Road onto Paradise. And just as I was backing out, he rear-ended me and spun my car around and pushed it up through the store front at the store.
Oh, man.
Wiped that 57 Chevy out.
So what year did y'all start the Faros?
1960.
And how many of the original Faro members do we still have with us?
We have, I don't know how many are original. We have 28 dues paying members right now, and 108, I think I looked up, people are still around.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
That are members, but they're not current on
They're
the
not
dues.
OGs.
And then we got 42 deceased.
Okay.
Now, was there a Modesto requirement or Modesto High requirement, or did you guys take guys from just as long as you were from around the valley, or was there?
Brad's trying to say, do you take people from Houston?
I don't know of any from Houston. We had some from Ceres.
Okay, some serious guys.
And it was just mostly, friends that you knew. Someone had to sponsor you to bring you in.
Gotcha.
And it still is the same way now, but now it's a much more difficult to get in. Now they have a group that interviews people, and they have a bunch of questions they have to answer, and they want people that are going to be stand-up people. And
That sounds pretty civil.
we
and
became
pretty boring.
Yeah, I mean,
No toilet seats or
I was about
diapers
to ask
involved.
Daryl. I was
I'm out.
like, "How do we get jumped in tonight? What do we got to do? Us five guys tonight.
Yeah.
What do we got to do to get in the Faros?
You got to
right
show
now?
up. You got to show up to a certain number of events, and you have to wear your colors and anything.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard. We became a nonprofit, incorporated a couple of years ago.
Good stuff.
Daryl, how quickly would you kick Brad out of your how quickly would you kick Brad out of if he showed up in his electric car and wanted to be in the Faros?
He's got his braids tucked in right now.
No foreign cars. And
It's a Ford.
and 73 or older.
Okay.
Oh, 73-year-old.
Those,
Got it.
those old original ones are grandfathered in, so we don't have to have a car. But
So you got guys in Teslas pulling up to the Faros.
we got guys in Volkswagens that are getting kicked out. One of the original ones had a Porsche, and one of our presidents has Porsches too, but he had an old Speedster, and he's almost dead now. he sold his car here
All right.
3 years ago.
So since we're talking cars, I got one last question or one last observation that I want to sort of lay down. So next week we're going to do a draft. We do movie episode, and then we do a draft episode. And the draft episode coming up that I'll preview right now is the most memorable cars
In a movie.
in movies. And one of the things that, as I was making my list to draft this, I realized is like 90% probably come from pre-73, I would say.
Yeah.
And when I, obviously there's exceptions around if we go like different eras of Corvettes in the 80s or Porsche and stuff like that. But like, is that going to be permanently the classic car era? I mean, do you think that this is like, that's a moment in time where cars were some way special that they just never are going to be again?
Oh, I don't know. Of course, for us, they will be.
But I mean, that's the funny part, right? I mean, it is for you, but I think it is for like all the guys when I was going to school. Yeah, there were cool trucks from that era and stuff, but the really cool cars, right, were the like 70 GTO, if you happen to have a 67, Camaro, a 71 Chevy Nova, right? Like those are the cars that were still cool in the 90s and in the 2000s.
So will an 86 Pontiac Fiero ever be a classic car? Is kind of what you're saying.
That's what I'm asking, because I have a couple that I'm
Fiero
trying to
might be.
I mean,
Well, I was gonna say, what do you think about like the remakes of like the Challengers, and they've remade the Charger and some of these, like, what do you think of those?
I like them myself.
Yeah.
The pony cars, Challenger, Camaros.
Yeah.
Still got a Mustang.
Yeah.
Even though we have electric Mustang SUV.
Yeah, that's what Brad has. Brad's electric Mustang.
I don't
SUV.
consider it a Mustang. Like I wanted to.
What do we call it?
I've always been
Why the hell they called it a Mustang?
that was not my selling point. I was a bit of Ford guy, and it was the Ford electric that was available, and it's got some kick though. It's fun to drive.
Electric got that instant torque. They're quick.
Ooh,
That
it's
why you
fun
got
to
the
drive.
Mustang tattoo on your lower back. All right.
Okay,
Daryl.
so wait, last question,
Last
Daryl.
question.
Last question, Daryl. Money is no object. What is your ultimate car?
It's all original. It's perfect. It's
Any
the way
year,
it was.
any
It's
model,
super-
to anything.
You go to Monterey
anything.
to the car show, and you get to pick the
You
one
could have
want.
anything. What would you pick?
I gotta say,
That's
Daryl looks
an-
so uncomfortable right now.
That's an
He's like,
impossible, that's an impossible question.
Is it really impossible?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably pick something that was my era. A 57 Chevy,
that what it is?
Yeah.
Cherry
Yeah.
57. Yeah.
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 And yeah.
Oh man, this is a great question that I actually. Let's go. Can we think we can go around? Let's wait till after. Let's think about this.
Yeah, I know mine.
We're gonna. You know yours.
I know mine. Let's go around
Okay,
it quick.
let's go. All right. Daryl says 57 Chevy. What do you got, Zach?
1986 Volvo sedan 4-door diesel.
Oh, that sounds like a winner.
The safest car ever made.
But diesel's more expensive than gasoline. though.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Literally a tank.
Nick, what do you got?
I can't. I'm not a car guy, but the Shelby, the Mustang, and
Oh yeah.
Nicolas Cage's Mustang. I mean that got
Eleanor.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally I was trying to figure. I don't know the years or whatever, but some sort of Shelby Cobra in
Yeah.
the '60s.
Yeah.
Like that's always been my.
What do you
kind of
got,
car.
bro?
Sleek black, all black interior, 69 Charger, Dodge Charger.
Oh, that's a great call. So I have two that are close for me. It's either the 67 Super Sport Camaro, which is a great car.
I like 67 the best.
Yeah, of all the years, or
69 is one of the most popular ones, but I like the
67 better. Yeah, and the back fin on it I like a little bit better on the 67s, and then the other, I guess I think the 70 Chevy Chevelle I always really loved, like just a regular hardtop Chevy Chevelle 70. I don't know. I don't know cars super well in terms of like I'm not a mechanic and I don't, but man,
That was our friend Arlen had the convertible.
the convertible Chevelle. Yeah,
That was a nice car.
well,
One of our members just sold one. He had a 472 engine in it.
Yeah.
He finally got rid of it.
well, one of these days they're probably worth a lot more than any car I've ever owned. Daryl, I really, really appreciate you coming. I know it would have meant a lot to my dad, so I'm hoping that he's listening wherever he is because he really he wanted to hear this episode and he wanted to hear you on it, and it's a real honor to him and a pleasure to us to have you on. So I thank you very much for coming.
Thank
To
you.
be here. Nice to talk
Thank
to
you, Daryl.
Thank you so
Thanks so much, Daryl. We appreciate you. This episode of Bev's Video Kingdom is brought to you by the Nostalgia-Matic 5000. Oh, baby, there is the Wolfman coming at you live from the big old bad streets of Modesto, California. Oh, yeah, I remember when the kids were cruising down McHenry Avenue like they were riding on pure moonlight, man. Windows down, tunes cranking, engines purring like a kitten in a cream factory. But, oh, boy, what happened to you, Modesto? What happened to the cool cats and the sweet chariots gliding under those neon lights? Now you got all these little zombies creeping down McHenry, heads stuck on their phones like it's some sort of brain-eating contest. Ain't looking where they're going, ain't feeling the night air, ain't even hearing the tunes because they got those itty-bitty speakers jamming in their ears just like they're scared of good old rock and roll. And don't even get me started on those quiet little electric cars sneaking up like death on roller skates, man. Kids getting flattened because they're busy recording their latest Gram story instead of watching where they're walking. You got little Bobby over there wrapping his Tesla around a lamppost because he was too busy swiping right. And little Susie getting knocked on her keister by a silent Prius while she's dancing for the TikTok. What kind of madness is this, baby? Ain't no soundtrack to life when it's just thumbs tapping and screens glowing. But hold on to your handlebars, cats and kittens, because the Wolfman's got the cure for what ails you. Introducing the Nostalgia-matic 5000. That's right, a miracle machine that yanks your sorry hide right out of your digital doomsday and blasts you back to the golden days, baby. We're talking chrome-plated vibes, real car radios with real knobs, and engines so loud you couldn't hear a tweet if it had feathers in the beak. It's got an old-school phone jammer so strong it'll turn your smartphone into a paperweight from Mars. And just for you electric car drivers, the Nostalgia-matic 5000 adds a V8 engine roar to any vehicle. You'll be chugging down McHenry like a hot rod from Hades, man. Don't be just another glow-faced goner in a Twilight Zone, baby. Get the Nostalgia-matic 5000 today and cruise like you got the stars riding shotgun. Ah, woo! This is Wolfman signing off, telling you to live, love, and cruise like you mean it.
That's an incredible impression.
Is that technically code switching?
Oh, he definitely appropriated Jack there.
Is it a one-night stand, or do you hit it with a shovel, or take it home to mom and dad? It's like fuck, marry, or kill. It's Jack body bag.
Zach, I know what
Are we
you're
recording?
thinking. Don't say anything.
I thought he was going to.
So he's not going to be able to.
I got a good joke.
Zach.
I can't say it.
Hey, real quick, it was awesome to have Daryl, and he was a great guest. But we kind of overlooked our drinking with the director, segment
Mandate.
that we always have to do, which is not who. What were we drinking?
Who are you drinking? I'm drinking Wolfman Jack.
I'm drinking Wolfman Jack's piss.
Who's in your mouth, Zach?
Hey, Scotch, why don't you lead us off?
All right. Yeah. So I am drinking Dying Breed Hoarder Porter. I want to give a shout out to Robin, one of our bigger fans out there.
What's up, Robin?
Yeah, and so
My guy, Robin.
last time I played a solo show there, he's like, "Dude, you gotta drink some of our beer on the show."
You know what we
Oh
should?
hell yeah, because it's really good.
I'm
fucking
just
beer.
thinking right now, we should do like a live show at Dying Breed.
I think they'd be down.
Or at last call,
Scotty.
or like a combo. I don't know. We
When
should
you-
do a live show.
When you play Dying Breed solo,
Mm-hmm.
are you on that main stage or are you up in the rafters?
So
'Cause-
I've done both.
He's done
now.
both.
dude, because
Yeah.
if anybody's been to Dying Breed, like check it out. There's almost like a Pirates of the Caribbean-esque like feel to it when you're up in the rafters.
The little farmhouse,
dude.
that's got
It's
the- yeah.
yeah,
I think
dude,
Scotty-
it's so like Disney.
he
to me.
wears a eye patch when he plays it.
Right.
You have to.
and I play with a hook.
Yeah.
And so I've done.
Steel guitar. Just slides with the slide.
So I've done both, and it's kind of neat because the one that's upstairs. Well, first of all, the load-in sucks.
Oh, I bet.
Because those stairs are awful. They're the steepest and thinnest stairs ever, and you got to haul your shit up there. But it's really kind of cool because you're kind of isolated, and you don't have like people all up in you.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of neat. But yeah, I played the stage last time, and that was really cool to do it by myself for the first time. I've played with Flying Blind a bunch of times, and it's kind of cool to do it.
It's such a
Do
cool
you
venue.
want to give a shout out to my daughter when you play your solo shows at Dying Breed?
Well, yeah. First of all, dude, every time I play at Dying Breed, she takes my tip jar around and goes
Just
to every
pay
table.
up.
Oh my god!
Are you
And-
serious?
Pay up.
My tip jar is just
Sock full.
yeah. Every time
Bren's the best.
she's just all, "Hi, would you like to give tips?" And
I like the idea
comes
that
back,
I like the
yeah.
idea that she's like, how do you put the fucking money in the jar?
Oh yeah, no, she's
Yeah.
she's vicious. She got
Yeah,
she got
she's
that
like,
side.
we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You know,
She is a true Scotch Beck fan. no
Yeah,
doubt.
I really appreciate
smart
that.
girl.
And yeah, there's a song of mine that every time I see her, I was like, well, I'm playing that song tonight for
there you
her.
go.
Absolutely.
Attaboy.
So, yeah.
All right, Brad, what are you drinking?
I am drinking some Citra Bowl from Last Call Brewing in Oakdale, California.
Got that on my tap.
Yep, it came fresh out of the tap over there. Citra Bowl is a Citra hop based hazy pale ale, so it's just light on the ABV but big on the flavor.
In fact, you brought that for the Keith Monroe Celebration of Life.
Yes, we did. And,
It delighted those who partook.
yeah, it's got a lot of the hop's called Citra. You bet there's some citrus flavor in there, and it's got a big heavy citrus flavor, but it's delicious and nice on a nice warm day.
Have I ever told? Is it my dad hated beer? He claimed. Yeah, I think he did. He didn't like it. But he claimed like he'd like one sip one time. He also claimed he'd never smoked a cigarette. And so maybe like 6-8 years ago, we're going through some old pictures and we come across this picture, and it's a picture of my dad on the couch in college. He's got a cigarette in his hand, an open beer in front of him, and a nudie centerfold picture tacked above his head. I'm like, did somebody just was like, I'm gonna fuck him over. I'm going to take this picture, and then someday that I believe him. I think it might be the only cigarette he ever smoked, the only beer he ever drank.
They caught him.
I hope it wasn't the only nudie mag he ever put up on his wall. But man, it is a classic. But anyway, yeah. So my dad would not approve of your Citra Bowl, but we had margaritas there too.
Well, to be fair, your mom, Keith's wife,
she likes the
is
beer.
doing all the beer drinking.
Yeah, my mom likes the beer. She is a regular visitor of the tap.
Yeah.
Here
Every time that I'm here, when Mary's here, she's like, "Fill my beer up." I gotta walk over and fill her beer up.
Yeah, she's a solid beer drinker.
So I've become, or I'm like getting to the age where all of my favorite beers I can't drink anymore. Because I just can't fucking wake up the next day. My body is destroyed. Like all of my delicious double IPAs and like all these like 10, 11% beers that I really like the taste of just destroy me. So the number one beer in the world, I think, Modelo Especial.
I think you're correct.
Yeah.
But you've got it in a last call glass.
I put it in a
that's
last
what
call
counts.
glass just to shout out my boy Walter and his beautiful wife Kendra. But it is out of the can, and I am supporting fucking Anheuser-Busch or whoever the fuck I'm supporting by drinking this. But it's delicious, and I can drink. I think this is my 11th of the day.
and you know what? Modesto, Modelo. They share like most of the letters, so it actually makes sense.
It checks out.
But it's delicious, and it just goes down quick, and I can wake up in the morning and be a parent and a productive member of society.
There you
go. Same as Brad. I'm drinking Citra Bowl. Citra Bowl.
Citra Bowl. Last call.
It's Citra Bowl.
Citra Bowl.
Yeah.
Citra Bowl.
It's delicious.
Citra Bowl. So I'm drinking Diet Pepsi and Grenadine. On one of the early episodes, when the Grenadine gag got going, there was like one day I show up and there's just like a fucking box on my porch. And I opened the box, and there are literally 6 different kinds of giant bottles of Grenadine. And I didn't even have to question. I just called my dad, and I was like, "Dad, did you send me a bunch of Grenadine?" And he's like, "Yeah, I sent you a bunch of Grenadine."
That's a Nick special over there. He's the one who started the Grenadine joke.
He did, yeah. You get Grenadine and no opinions.
No opinion, Grenadine, no opinions.
My dad took that very seriously. So I have I believe I just cracked the only remaining bottle from that haul that my dad sent.
Man.
Oh, it was that size bottle?
It's a giant. Yeah, it's like a big.
It's hiding behind the Diet Pepsi.
Yeah, it's a huge. I have a 2-liter Diet Pepsi, and it barely covers this Grenadine bottle.
We were recently out, and somebody said, "Hey, I'm gonna go get drinks. What are you guys drinking?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm drinking Modelo," and the other guy's like, "Oh, I'm having this, and I'm having this," and Nate was like, "I'm having Diet Pepsi and Grenadine," and then the person had to took 2 steps and then turned around and was like, "Seriously?" And he was like, "Yes," and they had to go up to the bar and ask for a Diet Pepsi and a Grenadine, and for
goddamn delicious too.
One of the first ever shots I took with Nate. It wasn't even a real shot. Like this is before Nate was actually drinking alcohol. We were at the H Bar B in Oakdale, and I took a shot. I think it was like a Red Bull Jaeger, probably like Jaeger bomb. And Nate took I think it was like Sprite with grenadine.
No, I think it was it might have been a Red Bull with grenadine.
Oh, Red Bull,
little Shirley Temple shot.
That's the least H Bar B shot.
They call that the
Shirley Bowl. The Shirley Bowl.
Luckily, it wasn't. If it was crowded, it wouldn't have happened. They would have been like, "Get the fuck out of our bar." But it was kind of a calm, quiet night. And
they call that the Canadian car bomb.
Is that what they call it? Okay.
All right. So that's our belated drinking with the director. We love you all. Last call. We love you at Dying Breed.
Yes.
Okay. So we're doing a segment that we have come to know as the Shag Snag Body Bag, and I would like to know, Nick, what you would like to shag.
I like how it's a surprise.
You're like, "Oh, we're doing this."
I feel like we've covered a movie over the many movies we've covered of a movie that takes place in one night, but I think Brad's mentioned it, and movies that take place in one night, I'm just in for it every single time.
No.
You're usually in for a quicker watch, You're under 2 hours for sure. Hopefully around that hour 45 mark, which I think this one is.
An hour and 50, I think.
Yeah. And you know when it's going to end. It's going to end at sunrise or right before it. And you're just, you're up for whatever everyone's going to, whatever trouble, whatever they're about to get into. And usually, they have to piece it together. It's got to move. It's got to jump from character to character. And so I'm always in for it. And that was probably one of the even more fun parts about it. Is I didn't remember every section about it. I couldn't remember how the Wolfman thing kind of worked out. There were other parts that I forgot about, but it was, I always love that part. So that's my shag.
I gotta shag. This is Zach. I gotta shag the blonde just looking over and mouthing to him, "I love you," and then him just basically just deciding that his entire future is riding on whether or not he can find this girl. It's so it's kind of perfect in a way to me. And then the fact that we never see her again is just absolutely great.
Well, it's cool because I know I don't know if you guys have, but you have that moment when you're younger and going through life where you see somebody like that.
Yep.
And you have that moment where, oh shit, I think she looked at me and I think she was into me, but all of a sudden she goes around the corner and then you're like, wait, who was this person?
What just happened? Yeah.
And so that is one of the more relatable things in this movie. To me, it's like, oh my gosh, the chasing the forbidden, thing, and it was a very, very cool moment. And it's Suzanne Summers. I mean, shit.
I didn't know it was Suzanne Summers until you guys told me
She's
that.
gorgeous
But that's
in that.
crazy.
Yeah.
Step by step, let's go.
I was more in on the
Three's
Company where there was there were one guy, two girls, and no bras, and I was all in on.
I was way more into the Thigh Master.
That's a good call.
My shag is, as I mentioned with Daryl, I drive an electric car now, but there is a stupid feature on my car that you can put it into. Basically motor mode, where it makes it creates a digitized sound of a motor as you accelerate and decelerate. And it's the dumbest thing ever, but what it does speak to is the fact that this movie has a ton of classic cars and a heyday of vehicles, and we talked about the 70s and stuff being like the heyday of muscle cars, and just that just motor that you can just be at a stoplight, just run when you can just do that, and it just like that there's something just so visceral about it, and it gets me excited. I've always grown up around racing, and I just love a good motor sound, and it's just like if you
Brad
just
turns the bass up and he presses the gas with his dick. He's so excited.
Oh no,
Let's
just
go.
absolutely ready. I'm shifting on my own fucking dick. It's just like it's great.
Yeah.
It's automatic.
I'm gonna shag all the references to the area and the band that's all the way from Stockton. It's like, oh dude, that's great. And then the fact that fucking Han Solo's from Turlock, man,
So
that's just so cool to me.
I got a question about the band. So, were there really bands at every dance?
Speaking
back then?
to my
every
in-laws,
movie.
every weekend, every week, almost every week, they said there was a live band.
I mean,
every home game.
I mean,
Every home
first of all, fuck yeah.
football.
Why did we get rid of that? Because that's badass. And two, were there just a lot more talented people back then? We got our Scotch Becks and our Flying Blinds, but those are a rare breed.
So
Every fucking high school had some band
all those
around.
kids, all those kids that would be playing in those bands are on Instagram right now, wasting their fucking life away and not playing an instrument.
the high school I taught at, they used to do their, they had an alumni crab feed. It was basically for the boosters and this and that. And so I would go to it, and it was cool because they had this a cappella group that was singing the doo-wop songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and they would get together, and I guess they used to perform at the high school and stuff, and it's that was just the way it was. You had these live bands, these live
I want more live music,
and
man. That we got to bring that back.
Well, I think cost is probably the thing that DJs kind of started, once the gear started getting good enough to where you could have a DJ come and
the music
play,
quality is really
you can
good.
get a DJ for a couple $100 when you got to pay a band like $400 or $500 or whatever for a decent one.
Yeah.
You know, you can get the shitty band from the school or whatever for free.
But yeah, that's true.
to get a
They're
good
getting
band-
bands that are like a good. They're not just students at the school.
Right. Yeah, the band all the way from Stockton, they probably paid them, I don't know how much money back in those days, but, you know,
like
probably a lot
75 cents a
75
piece.
cents a piece. Yeah.
But still, it cost a lot more for that band than a DJ, but they couldn't do DJs back then
Right.
because they didn't have the equipment. So I think it's probably the thing that kind of
Okay. Well,
changed it.
that's upsetting.
Yeah, because
Hey, what are you shagging here?
I'm shagging cruising. Like I really think that we talked about Dazed and Confused, and doing like riding around in cars and having that be the like both I'm shagging cruising in real life and cruising in movies, right? Because like there's so much you can do that's fun. Like think about Wayne's World, right? And the scenes in the cars, right? And Dazed and Confused, and Pulp Fiction scenes in the cars, and like there's just, if you think about scenes in cars where people are driving around, kind of doing things. I don't know.
Driving around with no purpose.
With no purpose.
Like the purpose of that you're driving around, and the purpose is driving around.
Yeah.
That's just not a thing anymore.
It was something to do. That's what I think we kind of always forget.
Yeah.
It's just, the social media, the internet, the cell phones, that's all changed things, where it was like we wanted to get out of the house and hang out, and our option was get in a car together and go somewhere, do something.
And there's something about that, like driving aimlessly, and the conversation and the experience that comes from that I think is a little special and unique. And I think it translates well to movies like it does here, and like it did in Dazed and Confused. And I think it translates well in our memories of what real life was like. So I'm definitely all over that cruising.
It's a good call.
Scotty,
what?
did you already shag?
Yeah, but he can.
Well, we're gonna go back
Let's
around.
go back around.
I thought we skipped you.
What are you snagging?
No,
It wasn't very memorable.
I'm going to snag that the real Wolfman Jack got a fraction of a point on this movie, and it set him up for life. So basically, he got a little piece of the action on a movie that made like $140 million or something like that.
Yeah. In the end,
And-
I think 200 million and all told. Yeah.
And so basically, he was set for life because of his role in this movie. Because he instead of getting paid, he took a little fraction of a point.
That's a
And
good
so,
lesson
yeah.
for Brad and I.
So I'm snagging.
Well, and with the Wolfman Jack thing, which is wild to me, is that at one point they're like, she's like, "Oh, mom won't let me listen to her because he's a Negro," and I was like, "Wait a second, what?" And then you see him, and I'm like, he's not. And then you find out, like, I had to go look it up. I was like, wait, is this true? Like, was he half or something?
No, they thought he was
It was just
black
based
'cause
on
of
his voice.
Yeah.
They thought he was a black dude, and that was like uncomfortable for people, obviously, in the early '60s. So that was kind of wild.
Doesn't age super well.
No, not too much. Not too much. My shag, we were just talking about it. The time before cell phones. I mean, I know Nate and I, all of us here pretty much grew up at a time in high school where cell phone cameras were not a thing. I mean, there was, for us, it was VHS cameras. I mean, people did have some ways to film things, but it was not as inconspicuous as it is nowadays. And it's like, some of the things we got into, some of the things I'm like, it didn't need to be recorded. It was moments in time that we got to, do something stupid or whatever. And it was just like, not having to worry about that, versus nowadays, it's just like you do something wild, somebody's filming, or multiple people are filming. And we see that on social media every day. And it sucks to be in a generation where your dumb moment or something you do stupid could be caught on film, and all of a sudden now it's like the entire world's seeing it. It's not just like they're talking about it around the school. It's no, you're going to be noticed because, oh, you were that kid that was in that video. It's like, that's kind of wild to me.
Yeah. So I'm snagging. So this the other day I flew for work and I watch movies on the plane, and so I watched the newest Scream movie. And at some point in the beginning of the movie, the sister of the main character is working at a bowling alley, and they got the exterior shot of the bowling alley, and it says at the bottom, Modesto, California. Huh. And I just think, and I tried to talk to Daryl about this a little bit, and he didn't really give me what I wanted him to give me, which was that, like, I think that's so cool. Like, being from a little town somewhere that not a lot of people know of, and then you know, in this movie you get it a bunch. Like the girls are like, oh, I'm from Turlock, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And it's just like, these are tiny little towns that no one knows of outside of where we live. And to have that on like this national scale where everybody is watching and like gets that little spotlight on where you're from, it feels so cool. Like I got that feeling on the plane when I was like, it was like Modesto, California. And I was like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like there was probably a whole generation of kids that watched this movie from the Central Valley that were like, oh, this is our movie. And they're putting the spotlight on us, which I think is super fucking cool.
You said it was the highest grossing movies ever?
Most profitable in terms of like basically
how much it costs to make.
Yeah, the ratio of cost to eventual profit.
And it was like a, archetype for that type of movie, and it was George Lucas. I mean, to have your town,
it's pretty great.
Town.
The Onion, the satire site, The Onion. For a while they were doing like these video news spots, and one of the ones they did was the Modesto area ninja parade is not seen by like 10,000 spectators. Like, and the whole article, like they're interviewing people like along the street, and they're like, yeah, I thought I was going to see one, but I couldn't spot him this year. And it's like, it was the Modesto Ninja Parade.
that reminds me of this thing that I was watching about the ninjas from Japan, and saying that like they were actually the worst fucking ninjas because they're the only ones that people know about. Which I thought was hilarious. Like, there's all sorts of other ninjas from other countries, but you just don't know about them. You don't see them shit.
My snag is Harrison Ford. I mean, I think we're all like split on what characters we liked, what characters we didn't like. He's an odd dude, and like knowing now like what his career turned out to be, but I'm just curious how much like leeway Lucas gave him to kind of
he's like singing, doing that weird singing.
He's like, I'm gonna break up the awkward
yeah.
silence by doing this like operatic type voice, and like
what happened to his blonde chick?
Yeah, exactly.
Bells.
Who knows?
But he does a great. I mean, his shit talk to Milner is so good, though. He's just so good, so well delivered.
There's something a little bit different there, and like I just feel like you see some like you didn't know what you were seeing, but it was like. Yeah, you have something different.
What was his name? Alfalfa?
No,
Falfa.
Falfa.
Okay. It's not as funny as
I just wanted to see, Chewie in the seat next to him, like just like getting ready to
all snuggled up under his arm. It's like in this little shotgunner.
Yeah, because he goes from like 0 to 100 because he's like smiling, laughing, cracking jokes, singing, then all of a sudden like flipping the switch and getting all like.
He was out for blood. He was like, seriously.
Well, and gets serious with her in the car too, and gets all angry.
So don't get mouthy with me.
Yeah,
he tells her like, "I'll punch you" or something.
What I don't get is how does he just wreck? Like at least there should have been like they bumped into each other. Like it was just like he's just all of a sudden just
you lose control sometimes, man.
And John said he was winning. He wasn't winning. Like. Winning.
John was winning, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Milner's.
He says he was starting to come back.
But I think Milner's. He's his own doubt.
I feel like I know.
I actually thought that was well written. Like Milner's,
he psychs him up for his next race.
No, and he's also. I think he's just feeling a little bit like he's on borrowed time, and he's like, and he's kind of telling himself he's slipping, right? Even though,
and then at the end they're like, he dies a year later.
So that's
dies 2 years later with drunk. But I mean, even that was sort of it's like a drunk driver hits him, right? Which I thought was an interesting. Like it's not like he died in a race. It's like this guy who raced all the time finally dies because some idiot drunk driver hits him.
Well, and his dad died, right? Didn't he tell a story about his dad or something died? He told a quick story about someone dying
in a chimney as Santa Claus.
That might have been an outtake.
That would have, if we had fucking Phoebe Cates in this movie, this would have improved quite a bit. Go ahead.
All right, I got two snags. One, I'm snagging coming of age movies. Like it was a treat, to rediscover that we're in the middle of that this was a coming of age movie that I had sort of missed as a coming of age movie. I liked it, for all of the things we've, talked about as potential little weaknesses because of its era. I was definitely the things I love about the sort of struggle for figuring things out at that age. I really liked about this movie a lot, and I will watch it again. My second snag is having a dad who was willing to become a fanboy of a shitty podcast in his 70s.
Absolutely.
Because I was on it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Amen, man.
Okay, so body bag. Brad, what do you got?
It's funny. We were just getting into it. And when I was watching the movie, I finished it. Like he's flying off in the plane, and I kind of, I went down to my phone, was checking text or whatever, and then I rented it on Amazon, and like it ended, and then I went and I was looking at some IMDb stuff in the trivia, and they talked about the epilogue, and I was like, wait, what? I didn't see that. So I go back and watch it, and I was like, what the fuck? This is like the worst epilogue of all time. Like, it's just like he's flying off and, things could just end. And I'm like, what was in Lucas's mind that he thought, I'm going to give like a 1-sentence line about the 4 main characters and just that's it? Where killed by drunk driver, dies in Vietnam,
He's a writer.
insurance guy, and then moved to Canada and is a writer. I was just like, what? Why was that necessary? What was the point here?
Well, and then why did they just do those 4 people? There's other characters.
Yeah.
Like what happened to Falfa? What happened to
There was and the girls were pissed
girls.
off. I think the actresses were actually angry about it. Like they were like, "What's this chauvinist Lucas only showing these 4 dudes?" And he's like, "Oh, it would have been a little bit longer movie if we did that." I'm like, "What? You showed 1 sentence about 4 guys?
Well,
like it would have taken 5 more
especially
seconds."
Cindy Williams' character, right? Who's arguably, I mean, she was nominated she was nominated for an Oscar, and she's absolutely as much of a main character as any of the guys, right? Like, I mean, you might argue that Dreyfuss is sort of the main, but she's certainly as much as Ron Howard's character.
Yeah. So I mean, just a wild way to like. I don't know what he was thinking, why he needed to put that in there. Like, if you end it with him flying off and everybody's just like, all right, that's cool. Just throwing that in there was just like abrupt and stupid.
Well, it was kind of like a decent little end. You're feeling it was fun little movie.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, killed by drunk driver, missing in action. It's like, what the fuck? Holy crap! That just major bummer right at the end.
The worst episode ever. I think just about I've ever seen. It was crazy.
Zach.
So my body bag is a little bit of just a commentary on something that I have not liked for a long time that I fell into. So there's a common thing, and it is still very like prevalent among kids graduating from high school, and that is that it's somehow this huge negative, or you're a failure if you go to junior college in your like respective town. And like even in 1962 when this movie was taken, they're like, what? He's like, maybe I'll go to city college. And they're like, what? You fucking and blah blah blah. And like when I was graduating from high school, it was like thought of as this like big negative thing. I encourage every fucking kid to do 2 years at junior college and figure your shit out. I went straight to a 4-year college and just fucked around for 5 years. You know what I mean? And didn't know what I wanted to do, spent a bunch of my parents' money. Like, it feels to me like we have to in some way. I mean, this is like, I'm not trying to make like some big fucking PSA, but like it feels to me like there's got to be some way to like take away that negative stigma of like you're going to go to junior college for 2 years and figure it out, and then you can go on to a 4-year and do your thing. And like a lot of the people that I know, my wife, like 2 of the people at this table, like very successful people that I know that did the junior college thing and then went on to be very successful. And it's not a negative thing at all. And to be 18 years old and trying to go to a 4-year school and know exactly what you're going to do and like doing classes in your major and all that shit, you don't know what you're going to fucking do. Like you're going to change your mind. You're going to spend too much money. And it just seems like that stigma, I didn't realize it was even back then.
I changed my major twice at JC.
But that's my point, right?
Yeah. So it's like, and I'm glad I did that because then I changed it twice at Fresno. So
I mean, I think there's also a sense that like if you separate, well, sure, maybe it's a better choice from the standpoint of figuring out what you want to do, but you're not getting the real college experience. But as somebody that went to the junior college that's in the movie, I mean, yeah, it's different than the experience you get. I mean, I used to go up and visit Brad, who went straight to a 4-year, and there were cool things about that when I was at junior college. But I think that's part of the point, right? Is like, the college experience when you're going near where you grew up, but you're in college, is still a different experience than when it's not like you just stayed in high school. I think for most people, like I made great friends then that I found that were connected from around the area, and we took great road trips and we went and visited people who were at colleges, and we did things that we wouldn't. I think part of the stigma is like, yeah, but you're not having a real college experience. And I think that's not right. Like, I think it's different. But
there's like a failure stigma to it. There's like you didn't do enough to go and do this thing. But like, I mean,
Zach, you're not wrong. I was a big advocate as a teacher where I would tell my students, I was like, look, I'm going to tell you straight up that like 3 of my best friends all went to the junior college near my high school, and one's now a lawyer, one's a superintendent, and one's a professor. And here I am. I'm the one that went straight to the 4-year. And I'm just, teaching high school. But I was like, there is nothing wrong with going to a junior college, and especially nowadays, like for young people, there's so many. They're really getting a lot more involved in career technical education. So CTE. There's so many like courses and stuff that lead to like really good qualifications, certifications that lead to good jobs. And you can look at all of those on a cool website called goeducate.com.
Oh, let's go.
Nice plug, bro.
I felt such pressure as like a coming out of
Shameless
high
plug.
school kid to like, go to a 4-year and do all this. But like, as I grew older and as I saw like what that did to me and what like other people did doing a different path, it really bothers me that there's still that stigma today. And it was surprising to me to see that in 1962, they were still feeling that way. It was so weird.
That was probably the pendulum that way, and then it came back, and then it swung back that way in like the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. But it's definitely coming back away from that.
So if we have any young kids that are at school, like you could go to MJC for free right now.
Yeah.
Like it's
No.
literally $0.
It makes 100% sense if you're not getting a full ride scholarship, if you're having to pay a bunch of extra money especially without a plan. Like if you're just like, I just want to go to a 4-year because like, no. That
And
doesn't
as
make
somebody
any
with
sense.
3 kids, and I don't have a massive fucking savings account for their college education, like let's go to JC for a couple of years. You know what I mean?
And just save your money and buy a classic car instead and use cruise.
Yeah.
Which would have been
And
way better.
Nate knows that I missed out on the best MJC moment that I never got to be involved in.
I don't even know if we can talk about that.
We
We
can't.
can't. I think we can talk about it.
I don't think we can.
You don't think we can? Are we going to say any names? No?
If you can go, and then you can tell me. You can call me later if I need to delete it.
This is going to be a perfect example of Nate wants to talk about it now.
No,
and then
I can. I'll talk.
By
I'll
10
talk
a.m.
about
tomorrow,
it.
he'll be
I'll
like,
talk about
Brad,
it.
I
I'll
need
talk
you to
about the
delete.
broadest strokes. No, I'll talk about the broadest strokes. There, we at the community college where I went. We one day walked into the library, and there was a
Photography
class
display.
had done like a photography display, and there was a full size photograph, like art display. Life size, nearly up high in the wall of the library, of a fully nude photograph, very tastefully done, of a girl that we had gone to high school with, who was very good looking and had a very well constructed female form.
Okay.
And it was just there in the library. I never studied so hard, ever. I never logged the hours in the library like I did that semester.
That's so related to them.
And I can't believe you somehow never went and saw
You guys
it.
told me about it. I never somehow was able to come down
How
to
does that even
JC
happen?
and see it. But it goes to the fact that this is pre-cell phone.
Yeah, I
social
couldn't
media.
snap a photo and send it to Brad.
You could have on your the old wind
Brad's
up
like, you
24
could have
picture
if you
camera.
tried hard
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
You could have taken a shot of it
And
and
then
then
just
developed it and then
Dropped it in the mail to you.
yes.
Yeah, I should have. I'm not.
If you were a good
I'm
friend,
not a
you
very
would.
good friend.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing you studied that hard, because your entire textbook, all the pages were stuck together after that.
Yeah, no one
There
ever.
was no
I turned
study.
it back in, and they charged me. There was no.
They
just
had to
threw it in
take the
trash.
picture down after fucking all the books were ruined.
Just all the desks got turned one direction in the library.
Who would have thought that Zach's body bag would have got into like a pretty heavy discussion of education?
Education and photograph.
I thought you
And
said
photography.
heavy. I thought you were talking about the breasts in that photo. But okay.
That's solid. Okay, Nikki.
The last car crash
No.
and the lack of gore.
Yeah, they're just out of the car all of a sudden, running around.
With 1 second it's flipping 2 or 3 times. The next second she's out of the car, not a scratch on her, holds her stomach quickly.
But
Maybe
hey,
there's internal injuries, but she's not in the epilogue, like dies immediately after crash.
This is an argument for
internal
no
injuries.
seatbelts, though. That's why they were okay, because they were immediately thrown from the
There he
vehicle.
is.
Oh, they
Another-
landed on their feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
on their feet running. I want to see it. If they did that, I want to see even more. I want to see when they turn the camera and then Harrison Ford's out and he's kind of holding his arm like, so.
Actually,
Anyways,
one
quick,
thing I
short and
was
sweet,
kind of
but-
sweet about that is like Milner goes over and kind of checks on him.
He hands him his
Yeah,
hat.
he gives him his hat
Yeah, and
back,
I was
and-
kind of like, okay, that's cool. He didn't like caricature it like where he's like, "Fuck you, man."
Yeah, he said. I mean, Lucas saved all of his like carnage for the epilogue, which was like one sentence for each character.
Yeah,
Scotty.
got it.
We've actually hit almost everything I had written down here for body bag throughout the episode. I'm gonna body bag Modesto allergies because they're hitting me really hard right now.
He's just sitting in the outdoor studio, just absolutely wrecked.
So pardon.
I keep thinking he's really emotional about my
Pardon about
dad
the
and
sniffing,
just fucking
yeah.
emotional about the walnut
It's just
pollen.
the pollen's coming out.
There-
and
there
it's
is
hitting me hard.
There's a podcast called the Central Valley Podcast that they have some social media presence and they're kind of funny, and they just put out this video about basically like living in the valley.
It's so good.
And they're all saying, "But why does it smell like cum?" Because there is that one
Cum
like
trees.
the trees that they blossom weird and they smell like your favorite pastime.
Is it my favorite? Okay.
I just said
got-
I was just waiting for somebody like yeah.
I've got two teenage boys. It smells like their bedrooms.
Oh God, dude. That's solid. All right. I'm gonna body bag the teacher. Seems like low hanging fruit here, but like
About
the
time.
creepy shit. Like that's the one. And I didn't have any issues with the Milner and Judy's little sister whole thing, but man, I did not love that whole like. Again, it wasn't even that like. It was not. I'm actually not body bagging the teacher. I'm body bagging the portrayal of that interaction where I'm like
Like high fives.
yeah, almost like it was like, wait, what? Like, wait, we're like, thumbs up, buddy. Like, God, dude.
There was a
the
little
whole
bit.
situation
There was a little
bad.
bit of like. There's a whole generation of kids that watch that and they're like, I'm going to go back and be a teacher. At high school.
Right.
So
Pretty
that's
dope.
get all the
Like,
hot
he had a
chicks.
whole harem of girls that were just
Damn.
like begging to dance with him at the dance.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, they will get mad at me if I dance with you, sexy ladies."
But yeah,
at
he's
least
talking
better-
to that girl, and it almost seemed like there was a hint of like she's pregnant or something. Like they had to have a serious talk, and I'm like, oh shit, this is getting really weird.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Better Off Dead comes out in the 80s. At least they made it a little bit creepy when the teacher's like wanting to ask him about, can I date?
can I date Beth?
all right. We're on to our next segment.
Crackle, Pluto, HBO, find anime on Crunchyroll, Peacock, Hulu, Disney, Netflix, Tubi, Sling TV, Shudder, Fubo. What the fuck is Fubo? Sure, it'll cause a sensation. It's a streaming recommendation.
All right.
I miss those little bumpers.
I was just about to say, it's kind of fun to listen to him now because I've listened to him so long. Like, they're fucking cool.
It's just wild how great, and not wild because we have Scotch Beck here, but I mean, they are just
They're so good.
amazing.
They're unbelievable.
Yeah, AI still hasn't caught up to Scotch Beck.
Yeah, fuck you, AI.
Scotch Beck is so unbelievable.
Oh god,
It's unbelievable. Okay.
guys. You guys.
You say fuck you AI? Yeah, fuck you AI.
All right, so we're going to do our streaming recommendations. This is where we tell you what movie you should see based on the movie that you have seen. Anyone want to jump in?
I got one.
All right, Nikki.
Crazy double feature. American Graffiti followed by Can't Hardly Wait.
Oh, God.
Like, so we're
One of my
talking about
favorites.
like, and I'm not
It's a good
proud
one.
to say it, but like Dazed and Confused is like, it doesn't speak to any like the time period of us in high school. We just loved it, and that was like a pretty amazing take. And there was things that still cross over from like us growing up, but it still took place in like the 70s, and we can still relate. And there was hazing and all that, but Can't Hardly Wait is actually like the music of like, whether we're proud to say it or not, of like our high school specifically. It's like it's alternative. All the soundtrack to that is our high school experience. And so Can't Hardly Wait with Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah.
There's Seth Green.
All good.
Nate, what is your you talked about the mom from Christmas Story as a puberty accelerator. Is that what you called her?
Christmas. Wait, from Christmas Story?
No. From Christmas Vacation.
I'm like,
From
that
Christmas
was,
Vacation.
that's a Christmas man. She was not what I was.
What did you call the girl? The mom from Christmas Vacation?
I probably puberty accelerator sounds right.
Just give him credit for puberty.
Jennifer Love Hewitt was a puberty accelerator.
Yeah.
That's
Jesus
great.
Christ.
So many people in that. So many actors.
Yeah.
That you
Jennifer Love Hewitt was just
Oh.
she was wheelhouse for me though. That's she's like in that movie and just in general. I was like, you got my attention.
Amazon Prime $3.99.
Nice, well
Nice.
done. Who else? What else you got?
Well, so definitely nostalgia is definitely the theme of this, and that's a great call on that, because I'm trying to think what's nostalgia from our time or whatever. And nostalgia to me can be any time, and so I'm going to recommend something that's actually fairly recent, which is just came out on Apple TV. Fight for Glory, the 2024 World Series between the Dodgers and the Yankees. That just came out on
Got a
Apple
button?
TV.
You got a button.
You got what were they fighting over?
I had a button.
Were they fighting over how much money we can spend to win the World Series?
Yeah, and it just brings a tear to my eyes. It's dramatic. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, that's some good popcorn, isn't it, Nick? Yeah, it's pretty tasty over there.
So yeah, check that out on Apple TV right now.
Yeah, $1 billion team versus $1 billion team. It's pretty amazing.
Does it
good
count?
stuff.
Does it count this year? Yeah.
Yeah, it's deferred for forever, however long you want to defer it.
All right.
My streaming recommendation. So this is a full nostalgia movie. It's all about people who are living in the movie comes out in 73 or whatever, and it's like you're hanging out and you're thinking back to the days of your youth or whatever. I'm going to think about a movie that we've actually done in the pod before, I believe, unless we did it Basement Tapes. I was actually trying to think about this today, and I couldn't remember, and I didn't look it up. But a movie that deals with nostalgia, but, in the present of the people who lived it, and that's The Best of Times.
Oh,
because,
that was Basement Tapes.
Was it
That's
Basement Tapes?
It was Basement Tapes because I wish I was around for that.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
we
I
were
was thinking-
subjected to that on the basement.
I was
That
thinking
was-
we
That
never.
was Basement Tapes. Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Kurt
Zach loved it.
Yeah, because I wasn't a part of it.
And Nick, we should have made that happen for a regular episode. 'Cause,
Yeah,
I thought we did, but
Me too.
I don't know.
No, if we do, I can't wait because I'm on the team that loves that movie.
No, yeah. So it's a great movie. It's if you have not seen it, it's a bunch of guys who in their high school football days they tied in the big game, and one guy just feels like he's the one who they could have won and he didn't make it happen, and so he decides that let's replay the game, and so they're all reliving their nostalgia of their high school years, and it's a great movie. Small town Taft down in the
Kern
lower
County.
San Joaquin Valley, and Kern County. And it's a great movie.
Quarterback in the history of Kern County,
God.
Reno
Yeah,
Hightower.
and it's great because it goes from best in the Kern County, then the best in the state, then the best in the world.
Talk about overacting, dude.
Oh, so
my god,
There is no overacting in that
No
movie. That
overacting.
movie
It's
is
all perfect
amazing.
Legit.
And Nick and my dad grew up together, and
Nick and your dad grew up together.
Nick's dad and my dad grew up together, and actually I was riding with my dad today, and we were talking. Somehow the movie came up, and he's like, I think that's probably Nick's dad's favorite movie of all time, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Well, of course it should be. It's a great fucking movie.
Yep.
God, talk about just indoctrinating.
I can
And
jump into.
just
And I can insert that into
propaganda.
any little thing in your dad. We're picking it up. You're
yeah.
we can
Amazing.
insert it. Yeah, in any conversation.
And that's
He's there.
available on What the Fuck is Fubo, Hoopla, Plex, and Prime Video with commercials for some reason. I was like,
didn't
Prime
know-
Video with commercials?
I didn't know
What does
they
that
did
even
that.
mean?
I might
That is-
watch that tonight. Just
That's
I love it.
That's
Absolutely.
I haven't watched it in a long time.
torture.
When when the weather hits, in the early fall, or actually nowadays you got to do it a little bit earlier because football season seems to start a little bit earlier than it used to. But
And the leaves fall forlornly on the ground.
oh yeah, yep.
This is just
absolutely.
I don't even know what to say. You've hijacked a pod that was so sweet and well intentioned to talk about best of times, and I'm upset.
You know, your dad would be proud. Small town football was a huge part of his life.
You know,
yeah, he probably would. He probably would be. He'd be like, these jackasses did exactly what we expect them to.
I'm sorry they didn't ever make a movie about the Houston High School soccer team. I'm sorry.
That's true. That's true. That
or the swim team
better, or the swim team. Now we're really getting serious. All right. So streaming, Zach or Scotty?
I've got one. So again, I travel a lot for work, and so I watch a bunch of movies on airplanes. And I just watched one recently that just absolutely floored me. 2024 comedy called Snack Shack. Has anyone here seen it?
Yes. It looked good. It looked like very much in the Days of Confused kind of realm.
It starts out, so don't judge this movie by the first 15 minutes because it starts out ridiculous. Like the very beginning is very silly and not indicative of the rest of the movie. They start it out as this very like slapstick kind of silly movie, and then it gets into just like a perfect, I don't want to say perfect, but like a very good coming of age movie about a kid that him and his buddy, they bid on the ability to run the snack shack at the local pool for the summer. And they run the snack shack. The girl that lives next door, her cousin comes to move into town. Her cousin is gorgeous, and he sort of falls in love with her, but also his best friend falls in love with her.
How's it end? Oh, I thought you were just going to go the whole movie for us.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that, like,
how similar to Adventureland? Like Adventureland versus this, which one's better?
I like this a lot better.
A lot better?
A lot better than Adventureland. I thought it was very, very good, very well done. I think that the acting is great. The kids that act in it are really good. They actually look like high school students. It's just.
I love how Zach says that. Radford said this girl was so gorgeous.
No, she was. I mean, she's gorgeous, and she's probably like a 26-year-old playing an 18-year-old.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, like, I just think
but she looked the way you like.
the movie is so good, and when you watch it, like there's heavy moments that will make you cry. There's really great moments that will make you laugh. It's a really good like best friend movie. Like these kids are best friends, and there's like some conflict that they go through, and they're both in love with the same girl.
What other conflict? Like, can you tell us about the conflict?
Yeah, they're in love with the same girl. It's a pretty big conflict.
Anything else?
I mean, yeah.
Just tell us how it ends.
They fucking fight. Scene? They fight each other.
They fight. Oh, okay, there's a fight scene.
Where
do I watch it?
It is on Prime Video.
Watch it on Prime
without commercials.
Or just rewind 45 seconds and listen to Zach's recap.
Or the best way to watch it though, is to fly Southwest, and it's free on Southwest in the seat in front of you.
And just sit next to Zach. He'll tell you about it too.
It's fuck you. I'm so confused about Nate's hate right now. Anyways, check out Snack Shack. I think it's very, very
way
good.
better than Adventureland. That's a It's a big.
I mean, I thought Adventureland was good, but
it's amazing.
You're tripping.
It is amazing.
No, Scott already said some bullshit. We don't even go back to him. So Nate, what
did Scott say?
No, don't even worry about it. Nobody needs to think about it.
It's getting deleted.
Bullshit.
No, I don't know. I missed that.
Nate, when you go re-listen to the episode, you can find out what he said.
Even for my dad, I'm not re-listening to this shit.
I already said mine.
So I'm gonna go a little different direction. So I debated in doing a episode in honor of my dad. I debated between two movies. We chose American Graffiti because he asked so many times to do it, but. And of course, we've done Notting Hill, which was his favorite. But the other movie I really thought hard about was True Lies, 1994. You can watch it on Hulu. My dad loved that movie. And it's a lot to love. Like, it's a really funny action comedy. And
saw it 3 times in the theater. Loved it.
Just so good. And,
that's insane.
Yeah.
It was a big deal when he came
solid, yeah. And I think that the thing that he said the most, he like, no movie had ever had more people killed before the opening credits than True Lies. And, it was like, his line was always like, yeah, there were 50 people and 2 dogs killed before the opening credits. That's got to be a record. So if you want to see another Keith Monroe favorite, True Lies, 1994, the real governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Arnold for the comedy relief.
Oh, and Bill Paxton.
And Bill Paxton. The best Bill Paxton.
Best Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton.
Gold.
And Jamie Lee Curtis just doing
Smoke
the
show.
I mean, unreal little striptease routine. It's great.
I'm
so
thinking
anyway,
about Bill Paxton. Just
Yeah.
I'm laughing hard thinking.
So good.
Got an ass like a 10-year-old boy.
Stand up and beg for buttermilk.
Beg for buttermilk.
Brad's seen this movie 3 times in the theater. I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
Wow.
Oh,
That's
should probably-
it was at the theater by the mall for like the $1. Like you could watch like the $1. I saw it twice there for sure.
Solid. Okay, so True Lies. That's my streaming recommendation.
No jet wash for Maverick, Meg's still on that goose stick. Iceberg list Titanic, Leo's drawing that nude shit. Jim fucks Nadia like we all thought he should. Ricky and Doughboy get the fuck out the hood. Luke hooks up with Leia just like he's intending. It's time for a reshelf and alternate endings.
Who produced that? Was that I don't remember who actually was that. Pharrell, who was the producer for that
Pharrell,
beat?
yeah. Or Dre.
Pharrell adjacent.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought.
Farrell.
I mean, I think
it
it
was
gets
Farrell.
passed up a lot.
There's a local dude, Farrell.
With an F.
It's like the Faros.
The Farrells.
I think it often gets overlooked how dope the verse, the line of "No jet wash for Maverick." Meg's still on that goose stick. That's a dope line.
That's a great.
It's a really good line.
Brad wrote that. He was like he took 5 minutes and wrote that whole thing, and it's some genius.
I honestly I went into like a different world for a second. It was like 5 minutes. I jotted down some shit.
And we got some George Lucas in there,
Yeah.
Luke hooks up with Leia,
like we all know he
Luke
should.
hooks up with Leia.
All right, so
Not like we know he should, like he was intending.
same. George Lucas,
How big of a curveball would that have been if they would have had like a sexual relationship, and then they're like, "Oh, that's your sister, by the way."
Well, after American Graffiti, I mean, I'm not surprised he didn't. Like, he should have went a little deeper.
That's how you roll. What's okay? Reshelf, alternate ending. Who's got one?
So it's, I mean, not too complex here, but the only thing I didn't like about the ending was the fact that he just gave up on all his plans for college and everything like that and stayed behind. And so I would change it to where he goes off to college and
So both of them
bails.
Both of them
Both
go.
yeah, he goes to
Yeah,
Opie needs to hit like not stay back for her because it irritated me.
It was kind of abrupt. It was like she gets in the car wreck and then he's like, "Oh, I got it." She's like, "Don't ever leave me," and he's like, "Oh fuck, I guess I better not."
Well, so still leave, go, go to college and don't fuck around and stay with her and be nice, because he's talking about, wanting to see other people when he's gone. It's like, all right, if you want to be a good guy, then, still, go to college and have a great future instead of just staying
I
back.
just thought of a real dark ending.
Say it, Nick.
Nothing wrong with that.
She's severely injured,
Oh, I like this.
and he has to. He's taking care of her. Yeah,
He's got to prepare her like bag of food every day.
It's like boxing.
whatever
line.
severely injured means to you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and he takes it really bad, and he's like, "It was my fault," and then he's like,
He
starts
drove her
doing
to
meth, and then it gets really dark.
That's one thing about this movie is like how nice was Modesto before meth? Like it was really nice. It seemed like a really quaint little town.
Yeah.
Or that just John dies then instead of the epilogue.
So that was something I had thought about. In fact, trying to remember the movie, I didn't remember for sure how it ended. I mean, I knew basically, but I knew there was a crash. I actually didn't remember if it was Milner that crashed.
I thought when Toad got out of the car, I was like, "Oh, they're gonna kill Milner right now." Honestly, that was my thought. I was like, because, and they're making a big deal about the other girls in the car with Harrison Ford. I was like, "Oh, dude, Milner's by himself. He's gonna fucking die."
I actually think that's a much better ending. With the major problem being then you can't end the movie with the like deciding to leave or not for college.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the
They have to stick around for the funeral.
Yeah, you can't like be like, okay, well, Milner died, but I'm jumping on the airplane. That's a tougher transition.
Y'all stole my alternate ending, which is that they even make a reference. The young girl tells Milner at some point in the movie, like, you're such a JD, like you're such a James Dean. And then they didn't have him die in a fiery car accident. Like that would have been pretty dope, like foreshadowing, right? I thought that would have been a cool ending.
So one of the interesting things I read was that George Lucas, and Daryl kind of referenced the fact that the characters are all blends of people, and at least according to I think some interview with Lucas, the Milner character, the Kurt character, and the Toad character are all supposed to be like kind of different versions of who he was at different times, and Lucas, like for a period, I think was really into cars and did some racing. And I think had a crash that freaked him out, and like he quit racing. He kind of got away from cars and moved and started doing film stuff. And so, like in some ways, you could kind of split the baby a little bit on this, and like Milner could have crashed and hurt himself. Yeah, like
split the baby. Okay,
in two. Yeah,
I like
right
that.
down the middle.
I like that. Okay, go ahead.
And like you can do not. Is that not a thing?
I'm pretty sure split the baby is not a saying, but I like it. Now it's in my
I'm going to
vernacular.
Google that in a minute, but we're splitting the baby. So,
Jesus Christ.
So the, there's a couple
the
sayings.
baby is for sure not a saying, dude.
I think so. I also, did we go around and around about whether or not saying pissing up somebody's leg is a saying?
Yes.
And
I think that is a saying.
But
I think actually turns out I don't think it is.
No,
Are you pissing up my leg like that?
Yeah, no, it's like
pissing up somebody's leg.
you're
Like,
bullshitting.
Yeah, you're bullshitting me.
Yeah,
I feel like
I would
I've
say
heard that.
pissing up somebody's leg, like trying to like piss them off, like offending them or like antagonizing.
Wolfman Jack says it's just pissing it on.
Pissing on the leg.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're splitting the baby on this. So maybe Milner.
If you say it faster, it's not
Milner.
less weird.
Milner gets in a crash and he's like badly injured, right? Where like, he's clearly not going to be racing anymore. He loses and crashes.
Loses
but then,
his
like,
right leg, his throttle leg.
Yeah, throttle leg's gone. Yeah, shifter leg,
Damn.
Maybe his left leg, maybe his fucking clutch leg.
clutch leg. The clutch
like
leg's
that.
gone. So
Clutch leg.
Yeah.
That's the bad way to split the baby.
or maybe
Go ahead.
or his right hand and it's like stuck to the knob. Like, you know what I mean?
I like that.
Anyway.
He's just carrying the knob around.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, maybe then you allow the sort of it to end a little bit because Milner's like he's going to survive, but like his racing career is over.
It's hard to jerk off with a shifter stuck to your right arm.
Or like Dreyfus is in the plane, he's looking down, and Milner's racing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, Dreyfus is flying over and sees the terrible rat.
Oh, I kind of like that. Yeah. That's a little that actually might work. He looks down and he's like, "Oh, the race is happening," and then
or he looks up like, "Oh, he's gonna win."
Yeah.
He looks up and
you see the explosion below.
Oh, and he doesn't see it. He thinks Milner
it's
won.
fine.
Milner won.
I actually dig that.
Or he actually sees Miller cruising down the road, and then at this other road, he sees this car swerving. You can tell he's drunk.
The
He's
drunk
like, no,
driver.
No, and then boom.
You can't stop it.
Yeah.
That'd be better than the stupid epilogue for sure.
Right?
What else? Anybody?
So in Keith's memory, are we going to do Till Dawn? So,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I got to reshelf here. It's funny that you mentioned James Dean because I was like, I was thinking like, Milner rolls up to the Mel's Drive-In in his Deuce Coupe, and then he's getting out. He's kind of looking hella cool, and then all of a sudden, Wooderson shows up in his Chevelle, and then Marlon Brando shows up on a motorcycle, and then James Dean cruises in.
Then Paul Walker shows up.
Dude, Paul Walker, Gosling from Drive comes in, and then like
Baby Driver.
You got Spicoli, you got Tyler Durden, like all like the kind of like prototype like bad boys from movies, and they're all there, and they kind of like all kind of eyeballing each other, and then I couldn't figure out from there. I was like, does it become like a competition?
I think they
does
all
it become
fight
like
in the way that they fought in American Graffiti, and it's like the weird, awkward
the
wrestling.
worst fight ever?
I was thinking maybe they would all show up and they would be blue, like they would be like the, you know what I'm saying, like
the Force Ghosts?
They would all have the Force.
Oh, they're all Force
They're all
ghosts.
Force ghosts.
No, I thought maybe it becomes like now it's
Hologram.
like this weird alternative reality where they have like this like battle of the death of who's the coolest
Like an
motherfucker of all
Anchorman,
time.
like an Anchorman battle,
Yeah.
battle royale.
They all line up and they all pod race.
I love that. All right. Yeah. Okay. I've got one. Yeah. That's yours, Brad.
That's yeah. I just thought bringing all because I mean it's that prototypical cool character. I wanted to see them all come together.
Yeah, it's like Split the Baby.
Multiple movies. Yeah, I think we'd split the baby with that one.
Seriously, if we were gonna split the baby, that's the way I'd do it.
Baby.
Get in my belly. Half of the baby.
Okay. If you're gonna eat a baby and it's gonna get in your belly, you gotta split it. Yeah, obviously.
The whole thing.
I mean, if you don't have much money, you gotta split the baby.
I'm telling you, that's a saying. Somebody write in and give me an example. Okay, so
430.
All right, so here. Okay, so I got an alternating. So everything happens exactly as it always did. So the movie comes to the end. They come to the airfield. They're standing there. He makes the decision. He gets on the plane, right? So he goes and sits down, right? But the plane's totally empty. In this one, he sits down next to somebody. You kind of see the person's shoulder, right? So you're like, the person's in the aisle. He's looking out the window. All the things happening, and then all of a sudden, like it pans out a little bit, and you see a 16-year-old Keith Monroe sitting next to him, and he's a vampire. He bites him he bites Dreyfus on the neck, turns him into a vampire, and they fly off to live forever.
Awesome.
Goes to black.
Love it.
One of the things
American Graffiti
till
dawn.
One of the things I want to ask your dad is like his love of Dusk Till Dawn. Is that like
the irony?
Really
I don't even think he liked that movie.
You don't think so?
No,
I think he's just really into Selma Hayek's feet.
I
I think
I was just talking about Tarantino's foot fetish with my son today. That was beautiful. Yeah, and I had to remind him, I was like, he's done it in his movies, but when he did From Dusk Till Dawn, he actually drank tequila off of Selma Hayek's foot, and he wrote that.
He literally wrote into the movie. It was like Selma Hayek, striptease, and then there's a random guy in the bar that she's going to put her feet all over his face and pour tequila down her feet, and he's like, "I'll play that guy."
I'm your Huckleberry.
I think he just thought it was so absurdly silly and like funny, and like that they turned a movie that was not about vampires into a vampire movie, and he's like, "Oh, if you're gonna do an alternate ending, like everything can be that." And so this is the original. But yeah, Keith Monroe goes off and he's a vampire. He lives forever. He would have been about that age. He could have been sitting next to Kurt on the plane, vampiring away. Graffiti till dawn.
I think if I'm going to have somebody be a vampire from this movie, it's got to be the young girl that gets into Milner's car.
Oh,
she'd
that's
be a
not
good
bad.
man.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone final thoughts?
Well, I just Googled "split the baby" and it's actually a real term.
Yeah,
it's
it
not.
is. Yes,
No, it's not.
I swear.
What does it say it means?
In the biblical story of King Solomon's judgment, it was King Solomon who proposed to split the baby in half to determine the true mother, though he ultimately used the women's reactions to the proposal to identify the real mother. So it's like,
So if they were like, "Yeah, let's do it," they're like, "You're not the real mom."
But the best is that it was literally like, we're going to chop this baby in half.
right.
And that's how it started. And
Apparently.
yeah, I mean, Nate's our resident biblical scholar, so makes
Split
sense.
the baby.
I hate that that's a real term because I really wanted you to eat the dick on that one. But
He wanted you to split the dick on that
yes.
All right. Any final thoughts on American Graffiti?
one. Motown on the map. It's pretty beautiful. Modesto. It's cool that that's their movie, and I finally watched it and it made sense. They actually don't ever say Modesto in the movie, except they say Turlock, they say Stockton, they say Merced, they say Fresno, and but Modesto itself is never mentioned. So.
If you want to watch a movie that references Modesto directly, watch the new Scream. It's dog shit. It's absolutely fucking terrible, but they do reference Modesto.
All right. Any others?
I'm glad we were able to do this.
Thank you guys.
Fun to be together.
Thank you
to
guys
do
for
it.
doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dad, I love you.
Yeah. And hopefully, we can get together again soon and
Yeah.
do another one.
6 months from now. Bye-bye.